Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Michael Gibbs, and welcome to our Cloud Architect Career Question and Answer session. My name is Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects. And we're an organization that's really dedicated towards building people's high performance cloud computing careers. I've been in this industry for over 25 years, and I've been helping others get their first tech job or get promoted in tech for 2 decades, and it's my absolute favorite thing. Today we're going to talk about how to get your first cloud architect job, and I'm going to be here for you to ask any questions you want. Welcome, Ronald McRae. I'm super happy to see you here. Welcome, Tom. It's good to see you here. I'm from the Netherlands, so really happy to have you here. Those of you that know me know that I've been in this world and I've been a career coach forever. And one of the things that I love doing is really being able to get out there and help people. See, many years ago, I used to practice internal medicine. And I can treat someone after they had a heart attack, or I can teach them how to be healthy and never have a heart attack. I like being a prevention person. And when it comes to building your career, guess what? I can do a couple of things. I can generally show people how to get from point A to point B fast and shave off years of experience and time. So, when we talk about these things really matter. And that's why I'm here. So I'm here to welcome all of you to ask any kind of questions about building your cloud computing career. Maybe you want to be a cloud architect or a solutions architect, or are you concerned with a cloud engineer versus a technical architect versus a solutions architect versus an enterprise architect versus a cloud architect versus a business architect? Whatever questions you have, we're here. I just want to make sure we can help you build the best careers. So by all means, please feel free to ask questions, and that's why we're here. So I can stay upwards of 3 hours, but I'll stay as long as the questions are coming here today, because I really want you to get your absolute best careers. So Dominic, you said you contacted our team several times about getting a Black Friday discount. Dominic, I've never received an email. I don't know if our team has received any emails, because we respond to everything within a day. I've not seen one, but there is a Black Friday discount. The Black Friday discount is 35% off, and the coupon code is Black Friday. It's there. So if you were looking for one, I think that's great. Now we have one. Those discounts are all run by the marketing team, so they're all done without me. But if you tried to contact us, we definitely have one. And if you're having a challenge with it, send us an email, meaning if it's not working, so let us know. But Dominic, do you have any questions for us? Or Tom, about building your career? Or Ronald, I know you real well. But if you've got any questions, I'd love to hear them. In the meantime, I'll wait for you guys to ask some questions. I know I'm going to be online quite a bit this week. And the reason is, this is the week people go home, they're with their families. The families are going to ask them, what are they actually doing? And, I want people to have an answer that's concrete so they can support their families. Can I tell us how I felt about changing careers? Got to tell you, about 25 years ago, I was actually working in medicine. I was a nurse practitioner, had my own internal medicine office, and truth be told, I really liked it, but I liked tech better. I got to tell you, I started spending more and more time with tech, and my wife said to me, she's like, dear, why don't you work with tech? She said, every spare moment you have goes to tech. She says, half of our money goes to tech because you love it so much. I really thought about it because, here I am, I'm practicing internal medicine. I've got a client base that I love. I've got patients that I care about. And I've got this burning desire to do tech. And I got to tell you, it's weighed on me my entire life. So for the last 25 years, I've been in tech, but I still practice internal medicine. In fact, I was involved in a really, really, really bad injury, for example, and about 10 years ago, where I couldn't walk at all. Like literally speaking, I couldn't walk for 4 years. Actually, it was more than that. I was doing 8 hours of physical therapy every single day. And you know what? When I came back, while I was there, I was doing some volunteer practicing in medicine. And while I did that, I was career coaching people to get their first tech job. So, when it comes to career transitions, Claude Shea, it's rough. And the reason it's rough is as follows. You may be doing something that you actually care about and actually like, but it might not be your ultimate destination. So anytime you go from, college to graduate school, there's emotions. Anytime you leave a good job to go to a better job, there's emotions. So Cloud J, I got to tell you, I struggled with it. Now, I will also tell you this. Once I got that new job, I didn't struggle with it for much longer because I had my new job. It took really good care of me. I had a lot of fun. But I will also tell you this, every once in a while, I still feel bad about not doing medicine. When someone calls me and they're sick, I'm the first one to provide guidance for them. If someone's unhealthy, I'm still the first person to provide guidance for them. Do I occasionally practice medicine as a volunteer? I've been known to do so. So the key is, Cloud J, how I felt when I changed careers, it was kind of hard on me. It's still kind of hard on me because part of me is still in medicine. The other side of that, Cloud J, is, when I work as a cloud architect or an enterprise architect, I got to tell you, I really did nothing different than practice medicine. I interacted with the client the same way. I evaluated the systems in the same way. I made my hypotheses in the same way, and I built my plans the same way. So for me, none of it's really changed. I'm doing the same career every single day, everywhere, and every time. But, that's just me. So Cloud J, when you change your careers, it's not easy. Now, I'll also say the second side of it. When you want to change careers, if you desire a career in the cloud, go after it because you can do it. So, whether you've come from the hotel industry or whether you've come from medicine like me or tech, go after it. And there's no reason that anybody can't do it. Just change careers. Here's the secret when you change careers. And this is why I'm on here to help you guys. If you want to change careers, the first thing you need to know is exactly the skills necessary for your ultimate career. Exactly what those skills are. And then you need to know exactly what your experience is and how your experience in some way relates to your new career. For example, maybe you were a management consultant. As a management consultant, maybe you started out with an executive and asked those executives about their business goals, their legal requirements, their challenges, the things they were trying to do. Maybe then, after asking the CEO of that organization, you generated some hypotheses. And after you generated some hypotheses, you then created an architecture, a business architecture, as we management consultants would do. Is that really any different than meeting with that same CEO and asking that same CEO, tell me about your business, your pain points, your challenges, your legal and regulatory environment, and then saying to the CEO, hey, wait, there's this cool technology I can give you in the cloud that can increase your sales by 11%, or increase your employees' productivity by 12%, reduce expenses by this. That's realistically speaking what we're doing. Changing careers, and the secret to changing careers is knowing exactly the skills. So if any of you guys want to know exactly the skills for any job, I will tell you today. Know exactly the skills. Know your starting point. Do a gap analysis specific for you because you're different than everybody else. And then fill in any of the gaps that you have in order to get to this end destination, and you will get hired. And not only will you get hired every time, you get promoted, and you have the career of your dreams. So just want to make sure I got that to you. So Cloud J, I hope I answered your question. And please feel free to ask any deeper questions. Let me get to the next question on the list. The next question is, I have spent over 16 years in data center. It is now the time to transition to the cloud. Absolutely, Daniel. If you're in the data center side, if you've been a data center architect, you've already been a cloud architect. Now, if you've been a data center engineer, Dominic, then we need to teach the architecture piece, which is the system design versus the system building, and they're very different. The other components that are necessary to go from data center engineer, assuming you're not a data center architect, but assuming you're a data center engineer, to cloud architect would be the same as if you became a data center architect, which would include the business acumen, the executive presence, the emotional intelligence skills training, the presentation skills, the gravitas training, the ROI modeling, the CXO relevancy training. Now, if you're a data center architect, you would have that. But otherwise, realistically speaking, if you're talking about a data center engineer, that's pretty much a cloud engineer, other than the data center engineer does it the hard way, where the cloud engineer basically gets to do a virtualized environment. Why do I say it's harder in the data center? Because you got to deal with the physical cabling. You got to deal with the systems. You got to deal with the operating systems. You got to deal with the patches of the system. On the cloud, pretty much you click a box and pretty much everything's there for you. So the cloud makes it 99% easier, which is why organizations like the cloud, because it's so much easier. It's easier, it's faster, it's more agile. When it comes to the cloud, the organization can get away with less technology professionals because you don't need people to rack servers and screw them in and install operating systems on them, because you just launch a virtual machine. So the key is, if you spent 16 years in the data center, it's time to go to the cloud. The cloud offers you to leverage that knowledge of servers and virtualizations and containers and load balancers and storage in a virtualized environment that's far more efficient, that pays far better. So definitely can highly recommend that you take that to the cloud. I think it would be good for you. Mohit Mac. Hi, Mr. Gibbs. You started as a support engineer in Azure. The AVD project, How to Grow. Should I go for more certification? Well, I don't know what your career is, Mohit. So, and I don't know what your certifications are, and I don't know what your experience is, and I don't know your desired job. So, Mohit Malik, if you can tell me that, I can easily guide you on what you want to do. But the key to get you to your destination is to know exactly what that destination is and to know what your actual starting point is. So, I don't know you're asking if you should go for more certification. I don't know what certifications you have. And I also don't know what job you want. So if you let me know, here's the key. Your certification should match the skills that are necessary for your job, not somebody else's job. So this morning, somebody sent me a resume to evaluate, for example, and it's a really smart guy, and it's also a guy that runs an AWS community. And the person is struggling to get an architect job. And when I actually looked at the resume, it had two things on it. It had a cloud developer certification, which talked about development, and it talked about all the building, which is all engineering. And when a recruiter sees this, they're going to see engineer. Whereas an architect, it needs to talk about the design, it needs to talk about the business, it needs to talk about the transformation. Revenues go up, productivity goes up, expenses go down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Moek Malik, I don't know what goal you want, what job you want, or anywhere in between, but I'd love to help you. So if you help me fill in the blanks, then I'm in a position that I can guide you. But without that, I'm going to be just picking certifications out of the air. And I don't want to put you in a position that's not going to help you. If I can get you to your goal, I'd love to get you to your goal. I just need to know what your goal actually is. So when that comes back in, I will be thrilled to answer that question. So until that occurs, Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Hi, Sandy. It's great seeing you again. Sandy, what are the most pertinent technical things I need to learn in order to become a good cloud security architect? Well, you need to know the network and the data center, Sandy, which means you need to know routers, switches, firewalls, load balancers, DNS, block storage, object storage, file storage, firewalls, VPN concentrators, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems, identity and access management systems such as Radius, Active Directory, etc., and many of the other packages, and the such. So realistically speaking, it's all those things that you need to become a cloud architect you still must learn. And then after that, then you need to learn how to design a security policy, as well as, you should know something about penetration testing, even though you're not going to do it, but you should know the process of how to do it. You really need to have deep knowledge at this point of operating systems in order to secure them and their vulnerabilities. You need to have deep knowledge of IP communications, because a lot of the security is going to be done on the network layer. So you're going to have to really understand the firewalls and the intrusion detection systems, the VPN concentrators. You're going to have to get really good with all kinds of access lists, all kinds of security groups. You're going to have to learn about what needs to be done to servers to disable unnecessary services and close down unnecessary ports, how to lock down the servers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, how and where to filter routing information. So pretty much you need to be a cloud architect first and then become a security architect second. And the same thing for the cloud network architect. You got to become the cloud architect first, and then you've got a special. Now, having said that, Sammy, a cloud security architect does not need to know storage at the same level of depth of a cloud architect, but they will need to understand load balancers. Because Sandy, as a cloud security architect, you're not going to be using cloud native tools. It's not like we're going to be taking WAF and Shield from AWS or Google's cloud native tools. We're going to have to get real creative when we need high security in the cloud. We're going to be using load balancers, network load balancers, gateway load balancers. Then we're going to go to the marketplace and we're going to get industrial security solutions, maybe a Palo Alto firewall or a Cisco firewall or a Fortinet firewall or a checkpoint firewall, something with intrusion detection prevention capabilities built in, meaning it's next generation, or external devices. We're going to be doing all of that, and we're going to have to load balance virtual appliances. And Sandy, in some cases, we're going to need to be setting up GRE tunnels and the such. So Big knowledge in networking, big knowledge of security on the technical side. So lots and lots and lots of knowledge, say understanding SSL, understanding IPsec, understanding other forms of encryption, hashing algorithms such as MD5, SHA-256, HMAC SHA, like all these kind of things, because all the hashing that are used for making sure messages don't change. They're the most important technical things. But I got to tell you, Sammy, all these architecture roles, they're not just technical. They are at least 50% non-technical. And I got to tell you, when people focus only on the technical, it's never enough. That puts them into the cloud engineering realm, not the cloud architecture realm. So get all those things, along with the ROI modeling, the executive communication, the presentation skills, the leadership skills, all that. That is 50% equally important as the technical for these roles. So please make sure you work on that too. And then you're going to be in great, great, great shape. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. No instructions. You finally signed up and you're very excited. So far, the program looks amazing. Wonderful. I hope you were in class today on No Instructions. There were a lot of new people today, and we all had a lot of fun. So super excited that you're here. Hope you were in class today. Hope you had a great time in class today. And if not, make sure you look for that email that says, welcome to Go Cloud Architects, that has all those class sessions. I know there was one person that called me today and said they couldn't make it. They were in Colorado, though. But in any case, so happy you're part of the program. Super excited to be working with you. And going to have lots of good news to tell lots of people very soon. So super excited to be working with you there. No instructions. Robert Nazo, what are the first duties you get as a new cloud engineer? Oh, that's actually a great question. So this one is going to be different in every company you're at. Ronald Nazo, if you join a big company, like a big one, most likely you're going to get there on the first month. You're going to be dealing with HR paperwork and probably training. So in many cases, if you're part of a big company, you're probably going to do nothing for the first 1 to 2 months other than go out there and meet people, do some corporate HR training, learn the company's leadership principles, environments. Every company's got some. Fill out a lot of paperwork and, realistically be there. Then in most cases, if you're part of a good company, you're going to shadow somebody for about a month. And then after that, they're going to gradually let you do things and check in. If you are part of a good company, and a good company will do that even if you are senior to a point. Now, if you're with a small company, Ronald, you could walk in on there on their first day and they could have projects for you to build. And as a cloud engineer, you're going to be doing a lot of building. See, we cloud architects, Ronald, design, but we don't build. You cloud engineers build our world. So without you guys, we've got nothing. So for you guys, you're going to be spending a lot of time on the command line, and you're going to have to get on that command line because it's too slow to do things in the management console. So some of the things you're going to do as a new cloud engineer are build stuff, and build some more stuff. So this means you should be good at that command line, good at that management console. Now, this also means you might be writing a script on your first day. Maybe it's an automation script. Maybe it's a bootstrap script. So make sure that you're good on bash scripting for engineers, not architects. Python scripting, again, for engineers, not architects. And make sure you know some Node.js for engineers and not architects. Now, how you deploy these things, Ronald Nazo, could either be via the CLI or for organizations that are getting better, they're using Terraform. There used to be the concept of a CloudFormation template, which was a great idea by AWS, infrastructure as code. But the point is nobody's using just AWS today. Everybody's using AWS and Azure or AWS and Google, multi-cloud environments. So the world is really going towards multi-cloud. And since the world, and the statistics are clear. What do I mean by clear? Last year, 29% of organizations were all in a single cloud. Now it's only 3%. So it's showing you that the cloud customers know that a single cloud provider is no good. It's a single point of failure. So you probably need to know some Terraform, and you'll be doing some things with Terraform. Now you'll be setting up servers. You'll be setting up storage environments. You might be configuring load balancers. These are the kind of things that you're going to be doing every day as a cloud engineer. As that cloud engineer, as a new one, you're going to be doing implementation stuff. So implementation means configuring. And the new cloud engineer most likely is going to have a more senior cloud engineer that basically will give you a piece of paper that says, do this. Set up this, set up this, set up this. It will have the IP addresses. It will have the server type, the CPU, the cores. As a new engineer, it's not assumed that you know how to do anything other than configuration. So that's what you'll typically do. Now, Ronald Nazo, as you get a little better, they may actually have you do some engineering work that's not just configuration. And this will be things like sizing, capacity planning, and determining, the right kind of compute. See, Ronald Nazo, what will ultimately happen is you'll have a cloud architect like me who's going to do a system design and plan it. And we're going to go to the cloud engineers like you once you guys get more senior. And you guys are going to help us because we cloud architects are going to say, we need a virtual machine of 128 cores and 4 terabytes of RAM. Now, to me, as a cloud architect, I don't care whether it's an EC2 instance, an Azure virtual machine, or something from Compute Engine. But the cloud engineers get very hands-on and much deeper. So we cloud architects are going to ask you, which flavor do you want? Do I need an X1E.32 XLG or do I need something else? So you're going to be more of an advisor to the architects in some way, shape, or form. And you're going to be advising customers on sizing, capacity planning, and tuning the environment. Because you engineers are going to do a lot of performance tuning. So there's those things that will happen as you get more senior. So initially, it'll just be configuring. And then it'll be more, you'll be getting to where you'll be more providing more input and more engineering work. And at some point, as you become more senior, you start getting into this design engineering world. And design engineering is the engineers that basically an architect like me would say, here's the architecture. And then they take my pre-sales architecture and they build an implementation design out of it, which then goes to the senior engineers, which then goes to the implementation engineers. So the architects like me often work a lot with design engineers as well, which are really architects without the business acumen. They're more the engineer version of us. So we often work with them. So as a cloud engineer, you're going to be doing a lot, but it's all going to be hands-on, 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 hands-on. Where for architects like me, we're never hands-on. We're all business. So, it's good to know. And that's why that's why we run these, to make sure people have the right skills for the right job. We actually have a cloud engineering program coming very soon, and I'm looking forward to releasing it, but it's a couple months out. So I hope I answered your questions. And Ronald, please feel free to ask more questions here. And then Melissa. Hi, Melissa. Is it possible to get hired by 2 companies as a cloud architect? Yes, but you run into all kinds of issues. So, Melissa, I'm going to say no. So, look, Melissa, if you wanted to be your own consultant and bill yourself out for about $400 to $600 an hour as a cloud architect, sure, you can get hired by 4 companies at the same time. But in reality is if you're going to take a job working for someone, let's say you take a job working for AWS, you can't work for Google because they're a direct competitor. It's a conflict of interest. So you're going to run into that. And, the reality is if a bank hires you, you're not going to be able to spread your focus to a retail organization at the same time. So the next question, Melissa, is why would anybody want to get hired by 2 companies as a cloud architect? And the reason I say this is you've got a lot of levers in your cloud architecture career, Melissa. You could be I'm Mr. or Mrs. Technical. And if you want to be that, you can do that. Or Melissa, you could be more of the architect like me, more of the enterprise architect, and you could focus much more on making your customers more successful. And use tech, like I view tech as a tool to make my customers more successful. I'm an architect. I'm not Mr. Tech at all. In fact, if I was a surgeon, the scalpel would not be the surgeon. The scalpel is the tool used by the surgeon. So, Melissa, and I know you, and your business skills are pretty great, and you communicate really well, and you are really, really likable. So I'd recommend developing more business acumen, focusing more on those executive presentation skills, and get paid 3 times higher than the technical architect, and not have to worry about thinking about working 2 jobs in the first place, just one. You're only going to be able to do one thing well, Melissa. You can't do more than one thing well. It's just too hard. It's going to take all your focus. That's why, as a rule, the Olympic gymnast is not a marathon runner, because they're different goals. That's why the bodybuilder is not a competitive athlete. Their goal is to be big. Competitive athletes' goals would be small and strong as possible, highest strength to weight ratio. Opposite goals. So I'd say, Millicent, focus on the higher value target, focus on the higher end skills, which I know you have access to, and I know you're innately good at anyway. And I don't think you'll ever even want to work 2 jobs. Because if one job is 50 hours a week and another job 50 hours a week, and those 50 hours overlap, you run yourself into a lot of trouble. So that would be my recommendation. But yes, if you're doing consulting, you can have small projects as long as you don't have any kind of conflict of interest between clients, which you may. Ronald McCrae, why do you get excited about his enterprise architecture when recommending as a possible path for career training? Ronald McCrae, why do I always like talking about enterprise architecture? Because it's my favorite place to be. So Ronald, I've been in tech forever, and I enjoy all parts of it. So I started my world as an engineer. And here's the thing as the engineer. We as engineers know more about this stuff than anybody in the world. But here's the thing. We work hard as engineers, and our reward is very low. And then we become a technical solution architect, which is pretty much an engineer, but a little more technical. And then guess what? We work hard, and the rewards are still very low. And then we become a solution architect, and then the tech demands go 50% tech, 50% leadership, and we get treated really, really well. And our lives are good, we're well compensated, we're well paid, and we're happy. We get treated really, really great. And then, Ronald, we start talking about enterprise architecture, which is that next step up where it's now 70% business, 30% tech. Now, this is where that cloud architect is really serious executive level. And this is where that cloud architect, or the enterprise architect for what we're going to call them, this is where this person's going to be in the position where they're really influencing budget. And they're going to influence business processes, and they're going to influence all the tech in the organization, not just the cloud stuff. It's going to be everything. And I got to tell you, when you take these roles, all of a sudden you get treated like royalty. It's like you're a new executive. So you get from treating well to being in a Ronald, the best way I can describe it, it's like, if you go to a really nice 4-star hotel, that's what it feels like being a cloud architect. And if you were to go to the Burj Al Arab in Dubai, the only 7-star hotel in the world, and you walk in there, that's what you feel like as an enterprise architect. And you get treated like you walked into the Burj Al Arab. It's like everybody is so grateful to see you, and they're so thankful to see you, and they have so much trust in you, and you get so well compensated to do it. So I got to tell you, in all the jobs that I've ever done in my life, and I've been every kind of architect you can think of, including a business architect, I find the enterprise architect one is the most fun. So I try and encourage my students to focus on the leadership more, a little on the business piece more, a little on the communication speech more, because if I can get them to go from that technical solution architect to that enterprise architect, I can triple their salary. So that's why I kind of like these, enterprise architecture roles. I'm about building careers, Ronald. And, there's a lot of levers in your career. Each lever is great. So the business lever means you don't sit behind the computer as much and you get paid more. The technical lever means you get to be cool and work with all the coolest technology in the world. And if you love that sort of thing, then that's fun too. There is no right or wrong sort of place, Ronald. I've done martial arts my whole life. I spent 3 years doing Taekwondo, 3 years doing Shotokan, a little bit doing Jiu-Jitsu, and about 20 years doing Krav Maga. That's what I'm most comfortable with. So I recommend that to people. It's not better than Taekwondo or Shotokan or Jeet Kune Do. There are all kinds of great martial arts, and each one is useful. It's just a matter of being the one that's right for you. So that's the reason, Ronald. But it was a job that I enjoyed most of my career, and I guess you can see how much I love it by the way I talk about it. And I just want you guys to be as happy as I was in my career, and that's why I do this. That's why I do these free question and answer sessions. That's when we give free ebooks away. We do free certification training. We want to give you guys every chance to be successful so you guys can have the wonderful career that I had. I don't want anybody to struggle. I know I spent $20,000 in the first month of my tech journey, and it didn't get me anything. And I want you guys to have all a great. So that's what we're doing. But Ronald, it was one of the most fun things of my career. There were some other fun jobs that I had, like being a firefighter paramedic. But, in architecture and tech, this is my favorite. Before I get to the next question, we're here for you. So if you've got questions, please ask them. We want to help you get to your goals. So ask your questions. Ask your questions. Also, by the way, if you're having a good time, if you can hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell, tell others about what we do. We work really, really, really hard to go out there and help the community. And we like to share our message so we can do it. We've got some exciting new things coming out really, really, really soon. Also, to let you know, we don't really run major kind of discounts like this because our price is so competitive for what we do. But we have a 35% Black Friday discount on whether that's our career development program or whether that's related to our interview program or even related to private calls. It's there. The coupon code is Black Friday. So, Chris, let's go back to this. Sandy, should you study for your CISSP at the same time as the AWS solution architect or Azure expert? I'd like to be a security architect for financial organizations. So here's the thing, Sandy. With my students, I have them doing things simultaneously. And here's the reason. Every one of my students gets somewhere between CCNA and CCNP level networking. They all get CISSP level security training, and they all get certified solution architect professional training, which is really an intro to the cloud. And then we pile on heavy duty cloud architecture training on top of that, in addition to the business communications and all these other things. So for us, with our students, we do the CISSP. And mind you, for the CISSP, Sandy, you're going to have to get real creative and look and make sure you've got something in your background that you can justify a security experience. Some people have been bodyguards and have played with technology where they've got ways that they can justify it by submitting it things that are similar. So make sure you do. If not, the CCSP or the Certified Ethical Hacker, master is probably a better option. But just check that, because the CISSP is the best one, and it's the one I recommend, and it's the one I maintained for many, many, many years. So just kind of keep that in mind. So I would do it. You could do it at the same time, and it's going to help. See, when you're doing the security will assist with the identity and access management. The security will teach you how to design the architecture, because I got to tell you, unless we were to teach you the security architecture, it's not covered in anything like a certified solution architect professional. That doesn't touch security. And I got to tell you what, it's also not even covered in AWS Advanced Security. That doesn't scratch the surface of security either. So you need one of these kind of big things. So yeah, sure. Do the CISSP and your networking training and your security training all at the same time. I would, because they all feed off each other. If you understand the networking, you can understand the architecture. If you understand the networking, you know how to secure it better. So yeah, I would definitely do them both at the same time, assuming you can do that. And that way, it's like you're in college. You study chemistry, then anatomy, then physiology. There are things that build on each other. They're not things that are different. They're things that build on each other. And that's really the key, is they have to build on each other. So good plan, and I would do them happily at the same time. And also, Sandy, one more thought on that. It gives you a chance to let these things sink in. And it also is going to present the same information to you in a different way. So that's what I would do. So before I get to the next question, if any of you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat box. And then, Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Millicent, yes, cloud hired. Cesar, you were about to give us a hint on how to describe our jobs to non-technical people. Family, friends, in a way that sounds really cool for them, and not the classical PC fixer man. Yes, absolutely. So here's the thing. Especially in some of these technical jobs, it becomes kind of funny. People will ask you what you do. And I'm going to tell you, Cesar, it's not always going to be so easy to answer. I remember I took my first grade tech job, Cesar, and I was at a Thanksgiving. And everybody said, Mike, what are you doing in your job? And I said, I don't really know. And they said, what do you don't really know? You fix computer stuff all day. And I said, no, I work in networking. So I said, what do you don't know? And I said, well, this morning I configured 2 routers. Then I bought lunch. Then I went back to the office, attended 3 meetings. Then I bought dinner and then bought drinks for a client. And they're like, that was your job? I said, today it was. I said, and the day before that, I was in meetings all day. And the day after that, all I did was buy lunches and drinks. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. But seriously, in some architecture jobs, I've done nothing other than bought dinner and drinks for a month straight. As crazy as it sounds, and just being on site and listen to people. And then on other days, I've been, nonstop tech. So CISSP, what I would say, if you're a cloud architect and people say, what is a cloud architect? Just say, I help optimize organizations. I help optimize businesses through the use of technology, because that's what we do. We make a business more efficient through technology. And if they say, what does that mean? The answer to this is we go ask our clients about their business. We ask them what they're trying to achieve. For example, maybe they're an e-commerce site and their problem is they're not selling enough. And when we evaluate their business, their website looks slow. There's high latency. They're not using search engine optimization. They're not getting enough traffic. So we, as an architect, would recommend several things. A better website that would perform better. Maybe we'd recommend some people come in and write some better copy for the site. Maybe we would then recommend a content delivery network to ensure that the website gets to people faster for a better experience. We might then recommend some people to call a search engine optimization team to bring traffic to it. See, the thing is, Cesar, I mentioned a couple of things that were not included in the cloud for a reason. That's what we architects do. We transform businesses. So when people ask me what I do, I say I'm a digital transformation specialist. They say, what's that? Yes, I go up to an organization, I interact with their executive team, and I say, what are you trying to achieve? And then they tell me. And I said, because I know a lot about all the technology, I pick the technology that can help that business operate more efficiently. That's what we do. That's what we cloud architects do. Are we on a computer? No. We are business people. So, that's what I tell people. And then when I worked on the networking side, Cesar, and people said, what do you do? And they're like, you work in computers. And I said, no, I work in networks. And they're like, aren't that just computers? And I said, actually, I'm the person who makes sure that the computers can talk to each other. And they went, what do you mean? I said, well, I said, when you drive your car from point A to point B, you need a series of roads, right? And they said, yes. I said, if you don't know directions on how to get there, can you get there? And they said, no. I said, so I spend my life building the roads and the maps for the roads, so traffic can get from point A to point B. And they're like, yeah, I got it. So that's what I would say. I would say, Cesar, I think it's really good to figure out what you actually do and be able to communicate that. But definitely, when it comes to family, I like to say this. Did you know genetically we are 99.99% the same? Which means we are less than 0.1% different than each other in the entire world. And since we're all going to be with family over Thanksgiving, and family tends to argue when you put too many people in there, I want you guys to have a great Thanksgiving. Remember, we are all 99.9% identical. That means every person is within 0.1% from each other. So, just keep that in mind when people ask questions, because when people talk cloud architect or network architect or security architect, no one has any idea even where to begin. So, these are the kind of things that we're realistically referring to. So, hope I answered your question there. Crimson Cat 3D, thank you so much, Crimson. I work really hard to share my 25 years experience with the community. What happened was I practiced medicine, which I loved, and I worked into tech, and I loved it. I mean, when Ronald McRae said I look so happy when I talk about enterprise architecture, I am, because, I finally took a really great enterprise architecture role in my career, and I loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. And then I went to go to Israel to train with some of the founders of Krav Maga. And while I was there training, I got injured and couldn't walk for several years, took 8 hours a day of physical therapy. And, I don't necessarily, and I realized that, the next phase of my life was really, really, really about changing everybody else's lives and making sure that everybody could have the same kind of career. So I do appreciate you saying that the channel is a gold mine, but the community that we've built, the community of all you wonderful people that are here, the community of people that help each other, that is a gold mine. On Sunday, I'm going to work with a group of 100 people in the Cameroon that are working on passing the Certified Solution Architect Associate exam. And just to be able to talk to 100 people at a time and help them, I mean, I'm just so honored and blessed to be in a position to do it. And you're here right now saying these things which are motivating me to do more. And there's so many other great people on this call that are asking questions that are going to help someone else. I'm thrilled to see Sandy here. I'm still to see Giovanni here 2 days in a row where we can really talk and build the community. And whether it's my student Melissa, who's amazing, and it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So the gold is all of you. I'm just thankful and grateful to be here with you and do my best to share my experience. I want you all to have the career that I have, so that when you look back, you can say, oh my God, how great this is. And more importantly, when all you guys are trained, because I don't really need to work, but when all you guys are trained and you're all great cloud architects and you're having the best time ever, I'm going to go to Jamaica and practice yoga on the beach all day long, which is really one of my favorite hobbies in the world. But I feel it's really important to me to train the next generation of technology leaders. I've been doing it for a while now, and I got to tell you, it's the best feeling to hear when one of you guys gets a great career. I just absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it. So thank you so much, Crimson. Sandy, you'll be signing up real soon. Really excited. We look forward to working with you, Sandy. We really do. And I know you'll be successful. Stanislav, does impossible to get success in this vendor without a degree? Okay, so is it possible to be successful in this field without a degree? Absolutely. I'm going to say this again. You can be completely successful without a degree. I know many, 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 many people, and I've gotten many, many people hired and successful without a degree. Now, I'm going to also say this. At least in the US, about 15 to 20% of employers don't hire someone without a degree. So, you do lose those. Now, the other thing, Stanislav, is the degree does create a better impression in someone's mind when they see your resume, because it looks better. Oh, this person went to school for 4 years. They can finish something. Now, having said that, it does create that. So, those little two strikes are there. Now, what can you do instead? Well, a lot. And you can do a lot of things that are a lot more valuable than the degree. So here's what you do instead. Let's say you're applying for a cloud network architect position. First, be great at it. You're going to have to be 10% better than the rest. And you know what? If you're 10% better than the rest, they don't even know that you have a degree anymore. It doesn't matter. My degrees are in nursing. And as a nurse practitioner, when I practice internal medicine, and my other degree is in business. So I have no degrees in tech, and I've been in it for 25 years. So the point is yes, you can get in it. Now, 20% of the people won't be there, so you're going to have to be better. Now, the things that college people often have, but not always, over non-college people that employers like, is generally more polished writing. Writing is absolutely critical, and the concern would be about your writing. So Stanislav, if you write well, don't worry about it. If you don't write well, learn how to write well. What do I mean by writing well? Writing in a way that makes your content very simple to read and simple to understand. No jargon, simple, plain, clear language. Figure out how to use that with good grammar. Ding, ding, ding. You are good. Next, what can you do to be better? Work on your communication skills. Here's the thing, Stanislav. When we communicate, here's the statistics. Of our message, 55% of the message that people receive is what we look like when we say something. So dress nice. Make sure your hair is groomed, that kind of thing. 38% of the content that people hear when we speak is what we sound like when we say something. So learn your executive presence, learn to manage your vocal tone, manage your speed, learn how to make a point, pause, make your next point, pause, make your next point. Learn how to use a gesture to add the gravitas, the executive presence. Boom. Now you're 2 steps ahead of everybody else. 3 steps, actually. Work on your emotional intelligence. Boom. That places you a league above everybody else. Work on your soft skills. Work on your ROI modeling. Work on your business acumen. Then Stanislav, when you get an interview and you're that great and you have no degree and someone has a great degree but they've got nothing, but you're great. You can't hire someone based on a degree, and you don't hire someone based upon certifications. You hire based on competency. You hire based on trustworthiness. You hire based on I know what I know and I know what I don't know, so I'm safe. You hire based on attitude, energy, enthusiasm, emotional intelligence, team playerness, and the willingness to go above and beyond. That's what we hire for. So be all those great things, and you'll be successful in anything you want to do. Don't worry so much about the universities. You can do fine where you're at. And many people just don't care. So you'll be very, very good. Stanislav, don't let anything hold you back. Go for your dreams. Fight hard, fight fast. I will say this, these careers have a lot to learn, which is why they have a lot to pay. But I'm telling you, you can do it. Anybody can do it that really puts their mind to it. I have nurses doing it. I have mental health techs doing it. I've got programmers doing it. I've got anybody from any background doing it, and you can absolutely do it. So go out there and go for your dreams. Let us know about your success. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Giovanni, when should you use Docker instead of a virtual machine? You understand the advantages of Docker, but don't know any use cases. Okay, Giovanni, so it's a great question. So let's take it out of Docker and into a container, because in Docker is a really, really great container environment, which I would typically use on my desktop. Like if I've got a Mac and I want to run an Apple container or something, I might use it. But for example, in the data center environment, we're most likely going to be using Kubernetes clusters. And so the question is, when do you use a virtual machine versus when do you use a container? And we have on our YouTube channel a great video on the difference of a virtual machine versus a container. As a rule, here's what you should think. If you need real computing platform power, like a website, Giovanni, you're going to put it on a virtual machine. If by comparison you need something small and portable, a microservice, for example, or like a little mini database, like a little tiny thing, you can put it in containers. So as a rule, you've got much more computing performance on a virtual machine because it's a server and a container is smaller. The virtual machine and the way it works, Giovanni, is you've got your bare metal server, you add your hypervisor, and then you create your logical machines inside of this computer. Now, here's the thing. You've got your server, and it doesn't have an operating system. It's got this plain hypervisor. And then you've got very logically separated virtual machines. And Giovanni, if anything happens in one of those virtual machines, it does not affect the other virtual machines on the same server. So that is that. So the virtual machine, Giovanni, and I'm going to show you why in a minute, is the most secure, and it also is the most computing platform. Because you can give a virtual machine 128 cores. You're not giving most containers 128 cores. You can put 4 terabytes in a virtual machine, but you can't do that in a container as a rule. So virtual machines give you much, 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 much more power. And that's why you use virtual machines in most cases. Now, the container is basically an operating system with some container orchestration. And basically, one container is logically separated from another container. Now, here's the thing. If one container fails, it's logically separated from the other container, so nothing should happen. But in a containerized environment, you basically have a server with an operating system. If that operating system on that server crashes, all the containers die. So it's a little less redundant than the virtual machine as well, and it's also a little less secure because one thing could potentially affect the other things. Now, what happens in one container shouldn't happen to another container, but let's face it, all of us have seen one container crash an operating system and therefore affects other containers. So the containers are cheaper, the containers are lighter, and the reason the containers are so light and cheap is that each container doesn't need its own operating system, basically because it uses the operating system and some libraries from the primary operating system. So containers are when you need a smaller, lightweight way to do a service that's much more efficient than using a virtual machine. And a virtual machine is used when you need much more computing capacity as a rule. There's some other caveats, but that's pretty much, Giovanni, when you would use both. Happy to answer more questions if you desire as well. Chris, you want to bring in the next one? Oh, wait, before you bring in the next one, if anybody has any questions, please bring them in. We're thrilled to answer any kind of questions you have, so please bring any questions you desire. Now listen, hi Mike, if you want to get hired as a cloud architect by a bank, what are some skills I should focus on to help you be successful, apart from all the amazing things I get from your program? Thank you so much, Millicent. So Millicent, if you want to work for a bank, and I think it is a great place to be, and I've worked for a bank, here's what I would learn about. I would learn about fintech applications. I would learn about black box algorithmic trading applications. I would learn about broadcast and multicast feeds in terms of networking, because those things are kind of used over there. I would learn about SEC regulations. I would learn about trading systems and how they work. I would learn about the business of a market maker that makes money on the spread between the bid and the ask when a stock is placed. I would learn about institutional investing. What is institutional investing? I would learn about how a company was taken public. I would get really, really good at reading balance sheets. And I would literally spend a lot of time thinking about how could you create the best and robust systems in the entire world. And because the banks will pay for it. See, here's the thing, Melissa, in banking, you can have 1 minute of downtime that costs millions and millions of dollars. Where to the rest of us, if we've got 1 minute of downtime, it's like, okay, guess what? I can't go look at the Apple website to look out the new Mac. But in a bank, a minute could be $10 million lost. So they have to build redundancy there. So there's that. So when you think banking, think extreme performance. A nanosecond could be worth $1 billion. So think extreme performance, which makes you think of low latency computing there, Millicent, which would make you think of cluster placement groups, a kind of equivalent thing, but it's probably going to be, a lot of it's going to be in their data center. So Melissa, start thinking about big hybrid clouds, meaning cloud like an OpenStack cloud or a Nutanix cloud in the data center. Start thinking how that stuff would integrate to 2 or 3 cloud providers. A bank, if they go to a cloud, they know that a single cloud provider is a single point of failure, so they're going to be using multi-clouds. They're not going to risk it. They're going to have lots and lots of security appliances, and there's a lot of regulations. So if you wanted to be working in a bank, I'd really focus on learning banking. Learn about loans, learn about stocks, learn about bonds, learn about all that institutional investing, taking companies public. So really, what am I talking about here mostly? 2/3 of what I'm talking about is knowing the industry, because what happened, and I'll tell you why. And the third of it is knowing the technical part of the industry, is those low latency feeds, those extreme security things that I'm talking about. Because you're going to be a transformer, and because we really want you to have those better leadership skills, if you know the business better, that's the best way to be the specialist. And listen, if you do that and you focus on getting the business acumen for banking, you'll never, ever think about 2 jobs, ever in your entire life. That's the way you get yourself. That will build you a beautiful, beautiful career. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Fabricio, how do you get from an AWS cloud consultant to a cloud architect job? What would be the best strategy? Well, honestly, I would say take a cloud architect career development program, because that's a one-stop shop to get you from where you are to where you're going. But let me answer that more seriously. If you are a cloud consultant, which is a generalist, the key is, what kind of consulting are you doing? So if what you're doing right now is start with a client, ask the client their business, legal, the technical, regulatory requirements, and then you're designing a solution for them. And that solution is inclusive of their security environment, their network environment, their application environment, their servers, their security, and literally everything end to end. You are a cloud architect. So I'm not really sure what a cloud consultant is. Now, a cloud consultant could be someone that's in sales, that's just selling stuff. A cloud consultant could be just talking about the benefits of the cloud. So I actually don't know. So if you want to tell me exactly what you're doing as a cloud consultant, I can answer that. But like a consultant could literally mean anything. So you listed generalist, so maybe, but an architect is also a generalist. See, a cloud architect specialist is a guy like me that would basically focus on BGP and optimizing routing through BGP. I mean, that's what a cloud architect specialist would be. Or an IAM architect that's done nothing other than IAM for the last 10 years. Because just by being an architect, that makes you a generalist, because you're talking about servers, storage, networking, security, databases, web apps, load balancers, DNS. Right then and there, you're already doing 5 people's jobs. So that's already being a generalist. So, the cloud architect is a generalist, whereas a cloud network architect or a cloud security architect is a specialist. So if you are a generalist, meaning basically you've got a little knowledge and a lot of different things, what you would have to do is learn how to design. So Fabrizio, the steps to going from one career to another career is first figuring out what the career is. You really need to first learn to be an executive, meaning you've got to be able to get in front of a billionaire CEO and be able to ask them about their business and get deep answers. You have no choice. You've got to be able to do that. So you've got to start at that level. And after you've done that, and you've gotten that deep knowledge, then about how to ask about a business, how to understand the business, how to understand, earnings, the tools that you have, Fabrizio, where are your levers in business? What are you doing to increase sales, decrease expenses? Is it a productivity thing you're doing? Are you trying to improve communications? Are you trying to fix return rates, for example? You got to find the problems. You're going to have to know a lot about business. So if you don't know a lot about business, and you're not in a program like ours, get some business acumen. Then the next thing would be make sure that you know the network and the data center in extreme depth. You got to really know it. So how do you know when to design a virtual machine versus a container? You got to know these networking things because it's the same stuff in the data center versus the cloud. So if you're going to make a design, you need to know when you use a NoSQL database versus when you use a relational database. We cloud architects don't configure it, but I need you to know when to use a NoSQL database and when to use a relational database, or when to use both. That's what we need to do. So, and what are the advantages of each? Maybe you create a data lake. Maybe you basically have something in a relational database and you know that the best, most efficient thing is to use a Python Spark script to then put it into like a landing zone and then create a data lake. And then you do that for your relational database, your NoSQL databases, and all your other environments. You can do that. Maybe that's part of it, but that's for one customer. So you really need to understand all these kinds of environments and all these tools. Would you use that, or would you use like an elastic MapReduce tool to do something similar? And that's really the key, is whether in the data center they're doing one thing and you're doing the same thing in the cloud, or using a variation on the cloud. You've got to know the way they do it in the network in the data center, because that's what you're taking to the cloud. So I would say you've got to be experts on virtualization and containers and firewalls and load balancers, block object file storage. You've got to know what and where and all of these kind of environments that we're realistically talking about. So you've got to really just, make sure you kind of know these environments. Know your firewalls, your IDS systems, your IPS systems, and what they do and why organizations use them. Know how to secure things. So I'd say get really strong on that. And then once you know those technologies in depth, now you're in a position you have to learn to design them. How do you do the IP addressing for organization? How do you set up the routing for the organization? What load balancers should you use? Can you get away with cloud native tools, or do you need to go to the marketplace? How do you make it scale? How do you make it fast? How do you reduce the cost? Those are the things that you need to know. So however you want to get those skills, then Fabrizio, and you may be an expert, because I don't know your past career. Maybe you're in sales, and you don't need this, but make sure you develop sales skills. Make sure you've got really good presentation skills. Exceptional presentation skills. Make sure you're CXO relevant, meaning you know what the CEO cares about and how to present to them, versus the CIO versus the CTO versus the CFO versus the CISO. You've got to be relevant to all of them, and they're all speaking different. Make sure you can also understand the engineers and translate to the executives. Half of what I do as an architect, I'm a translator. Engineers tell me things which are so detail-oriented, I have to think about what they really mean. And then I translate that to something that the business owner can understand. And half of that, and the architect is doing that, because everybody communicates differently. So you'll be a translator a lot. So I would say get used to those things, and then you'll have a wonderful, wonderful career. So in a nutshell, focus on the business, focus on your leadership skills, your communication skills, your business skills, and then focus on your knowledge of the network and the data center, and then learn system design, and you will be golden, Fabrizio. And I'm glad you asked that question. For people that have more questions, please pop them in the chat box. We love answering questions. Anything we can do to try and help you in your career. So also hit the like button if you don't mind. CISSP, working remotely in another country and getting paid similar for you in the US, is it possible? Partially CISSP. And here's what I mean. CISSP, if you work for one of the good multinationals, you will be very well paid. Absolutely. Or if you were in the US, and it'll be very well paid, it's probably not going to be quite as high as the US, but it will still be pretty good. And it will be enough money that people working for one of the US or multinational companies as a cloud architect will be more than happy, and it will be more than enough. So the answer there is that. Now, I will also say, Cesar, that I know lots of people that are Americans, friends of mine, that have houses in Mexico and go live in Mexico and love it, and then they just come back periodically to make it look like they actually live in the US. I personally worked for my family home in Greece for a long period of time, and no one was the wiser. And I got asked very recently to go support a client in Japan. So the point is there is a lot of working remote, and the pay may not be quite US standards, but it is still very good. Because this is a very important job, and there's a critical need and a critical shortage. And wherever the person is, we need people so badly. So CISSP, I want you to understand, why is the cloud architect paid so much more than the cloud engineer? And here's the reason. All these skills that I've just talked to you, the leadership skills, the executive presence, the business knowledge, all the ability to give advice and consult, those are really expensive skills. And the reason those skills are so expensive is if you know enough about business, you can improve it. How can you improve something that you don't know about? If I didn't study medicine, could I really fix someone when they're sick? I don't know about it. So it's so hard to train someone to learn, that knows business, that is an expert communicator, that's emotionally intelligent, that has some gravitas where you can feel them, and that has leadership skills, and is a technical professional, that it's almost impossible not to get hired if you've got those skills. You are so rare. You're called the unicorn in the community. When I call up, my friends are like, God, I miss working with you, Mike. And I'm like, why? I'm like, why? You work at one of the best tech companies in the world. And they say, I speak to you, it's easy. I ask you a question, you ask me a question, you confirm, I know you got the message and deliver it with excellence. And then I don't have to be afraid putting you in front of my customers. I put you in front of the CEO and you close the deal. He said, and they said, with the others, we hide them. And then they got to tell us, and then we got to translate it, and we don't know enough, and people ask us questions and we're not prepared. So that's the key. So CISSP, yes, you can work remotely in your country, and yes, you'll be very well paid, because this job is so critical right now, and because there is such a shortage of people that can do it. There's like hundreds of thousands of open positions and nobody's qualified to do them, because you need to have the business knowledge to transform an organization. So yes, focus on being great CISSP, and whatever country you're in, you will have an amazing career. You can tell me where you're at, because I always find it interesting. My family home is in Greece. Wherever, I always find it interesting where lots of people, plus I've traveled to most parts of the world for work, and I got to say, I've loved a lot of them. So many have been so many amazing, and I've met so many people that are amazing along the way. Chris, do you want to bring in the next one? Eshiatur, good to see you again. Can you explain the difference between a technical solution specialist and an architect? Your question comes because you're in Mexico, and there's a lot of openings for this particular area. So you're thinking maybe a better chance to switch some tech here. So are my courses a good fit for the position? The answer is yes. Go back to the first slide again. So here's the thing, Eshiatur. Here is what a technical solution specialist or a product solution specialist usually is. It's not really an architect per se, although it could be. A technical solution specialist could be the person that designs and sells the voice over IP solution for someone. The technical solution specialist could design and sell a cloud design for someone. And the next thing, Eshiatur, is the technical solution specialist could design a technology. So is it architecture? Not exactly. Is it very similar? The answer is yes. So Eshiatur, there's a couple jobs that realistically speaking benefit very well from my program. And honestly, the job is the same as the architect job, almost. One is what's called the systems engineer. and that is a pre-sales engineer. And a pre-sales engineer, like this, an SE at Cisco or an SE at Fortinet, you've got a sales rep, you've got an engineer. The sales rep goes to the customer and tries to sell something. The sales engineer makes sure the sales rep doesn't sell something that's not going to work, because they'll do it because they don't know the tech. So the sales engineer makes sure that it's going to work and designs it. So that is almost like an architect position, but people don't assume the sales engineer has as much je ne sais quoi or gravitas, emotional intelligence. So it's similar. Now, the technical solution specialist is often technical and it's often business. So getting the business skills for the technical solution specialist is a big thing. So what happens is these technical solution specialist roles are kind of like architecture roles, because they're system designer roles, and you're an evangelist, you're telling everybody about the great thing. So yes, my course would be extremely helpful there, because it's pretty much the same thing that you're doing. My course would work really well for the following: systems engineers, sales engineers, whatever you call them, any kind of enterprise architect, and any kind of solution architect, cloud architect, or network architect, because realistically speaking, they're all the same. The only difference is between a network architect and a cloud architect is the network architect is the routers and the switches and the cabling and the links, and the cloud architect is less on the network and more on the servers and load balancer piece, but otherwise they're the same. That's why you see so many networking people. So yes, that's kind of your difference. An architect is more businessy, more leadership oriented. So I would say this would be the step between the engineer and the architect. And there's lots and lots and lots of these positions out there. And the reason there is these people help sell the product. And because they help sell the product, they get paid very well. They're treated very well. They're well respected. And it's a great job too. And there's lots of them, and they're not as hard to get as the architect jobs. The reason not quite as hard to get, they're not easy to get, but they're not quite as hard to get, is you typically have to be a little smoother. So SGA Tour, you'll probably have to deliver a presentation on an interview for a technical solution specialist. And most good cloud architect jobs, as part of the interview process, they will have you deliver a presentation as well. So it's showing you they're very close to each other. The training for either would be pretty much the same. Train for the architect and you'll be better at the technical solution specialist, because at least from our perspective, when we train our architects, we give them about 10 to 20% more business than we would give the technical solution specialist, which if you were a technical solution specialist, would just help you go from technical solution specialist to senior technical solution specialist to distinguished technical solution specialist a lot faster, because they're so related. So it's a good career. Whether you train with us or not, I can recommend that technical solution specialist role very well. I think you'll have a great time. I think you'll get paid well. We'd love to train you if you want to work with us. If you don't, I still can recommend it. I think it's a great career, one that'll take good care of you, and I think you'll enjoy it. So highly recommend it. And if you've got some questions, please feel free to ask them. Crimson CAD 3, what is the best pathway of getting a job in US for a cloud architect or a cloud developer, as you are from India? So I actually work with a tremendous number of extremely good Indian people that are actually in the US on an H-1B visa. So there's a couple ways. What a lot of people do is, we in the US have a shortage of highly qualified technology professionals. We're critically short on them. I mean, we don't have enough, and it's really hard to find them. And there are certain places that have really, really, really great educational systems for engineering type roles. And there's and every university, every environment specializes in different things. For example, in America, we specialize in creativity and education. India specializes in engineering. And when we in America have an extreme shortage of engineers, we sponsor what's called an H-1B visa. And we sponsor a lot of visas in the Asian region, India, China, all these kinds of countries over there because they have very, very good educational programs in math and science, some of the best in the world. And we can't necessarily find enough people, so we go look for them. At the same time, a lot of these countries and companies bring in the Americans for sales because of our creativity. So this is about making the world a better place by taking the best people from all over the world and putting them on the best team. So the better our group of people, the better our solutions, the better our designs. So here's the thing. The first thing you typically would do would be to get an H-1B visa and come to the United States. So that would be one way. Let's say, for example, I need it, and I don't need, because I've got a steady supply of great cloud architects. in America. But if I didn't have such a steady supply of great cloud architects that I trained, and I needed a cloud architect, and I went all over and I couldn't find one, I would go to my immigration lawyer and I'd get started, and I would tell them I'm going to start I need somebody to figure out how to sponsor a visa, and I would sponsor an H-1B visa. I'd bring somebody from India, or I'd bring someone from Singapore, or Hong Kong, or wherever, and the visa would allow that person to live and work in the U.S. That person would be on that visa authorized to work in the U.S. for a period of like 3 or 3.5 years, and they can renew that upwards of twice. I think it's 7 or 14 years. I don't really know because I'm not an immigration attorney. But anyway, that's how the person typically comes to the U.S. Now, while that person's here in the U.S., they can apply for citizenship. And they do that with an immigration lawyer, and then they become U.S. citizens and can stay forever. So, that's one of the ways that people do it. Other ways that people come to the U.S., Crimson CAD 3, you could get a student visa, go to a university here. While you're in a university over here, then you can fill out the forms to come here. So those are typically the 2 ways to do it. The other ways to do it are, typically speaking, if you've got a family member living here, there's ways to sponsor other family members. I know that we had family members that were living in the US before my family came from Greece, and some family members helped sponsor our family to come here. So, that's my understanding, but I am not an immigration attorney. But I'm telling you, you can come here. And I'm also going to tell you that Canada right now has been recruiting immigrants. And I've got some students that have been going to Canada, and I've got some students that have been getting some great cloud architect jobs in Canada. So, just keep that in mind as well. There's a couple of other great countries, and once you're in Canada, it's easy to go to the US. And when you're in the US, it's relatively easy to go to Canada, because we're kind of sort of almost like the same country, even though they are separate countries. So just keep that in mind as well. But love to see you here, love to see you there. But if you come to the US, let us know. It'd be great to see you here. If you've got some questions, please, by all means, feel free to answer them. Crimson CAD 3, can you please explain how the live score feature works in Google in terms of the networking protocol used for communication and so on? Crimson CAD 3D, it's not something that I've actually worked with in a while. I actually don't spend a lot of time on the Google Cloud. I think the Google Cloud is an amazing cloud. I mean, a truly, truly, truly amazing cloud. I've just not had the chance or the option to have a client that wanted to use it yet for what they were doing. So I don't really have a lot of experience, and I don't want to misguide you. Great cloud, though. With some incredible AI experience capabilities. Hey, that's me. How would you set up a home lab for the cloud? Would you need to buy servers, switches, and routers? Or would you just virtualize everything? So, hey, that's me. What I typically tell my students are as follows. Buy a 16-core Xeon server with a minimum of 128 gigs of RAM, 3 SSD drives in a RAID 0 configuration, or an NVMe drive. And inside of that, install a hypervisor like VMware ESXi. Now, on this server, you can install EVE-NG and work on Cisco routers and do all those things and get some good networking experience. You can dedicate, say, 8 cores and build yourself an OpenStack Ansible cloud and build your own cloud. Then, break that cloud down, and all my students do all these labs, by the way, every one of them. The next kind of things that I would try and do is I'd set up some server virtualization, build some containers, build a firewall. So I would do that all just on these things. I'd set up a VPN. I build the VPN concentrator. I'd set up NFS. I'd set up server message block sharing. I'd set up an Active Directory server. And of course, I build the cloud. All my students do as part of our program. So, I would do all those things. So you can simulate your routers. You can build the cloud in a single server. And heck, if you get 3 servers, you can really build yourself a nice cloud. Because to build a good cloud, you technically need 3 controllers. But you could use VMware ESXi, and you could build yourself a really nice cloud. You could create a controller on 3 different servers, and that way you'd have your elections and your failovers, and you could use the remaining power of the servers that you could create other virtual servers, and you could use them as basically your data plane on the cloud. And you could build a couple of cool things with a couple of servers. Personally, I have 9 24-core servers with 128 gigs of RAM, and they all have 3 NVMe drives in a RAID 5 configuration. So that's just my house. And in my house, I also have Cisco switches, Cisco firewalls, Cisco VPN concentrators, and, well, my 32-core desktop, which I'm using right now to basically stream content to you. So do I think it's great to have this in the cloud, in the house? Yes, all my students have server access in my cloud. So the answer I think it's important is yes, but I would say minimum of 16 cores, minimum of 128 gigs to do around, get one or two of them, put it all on that server in a virtualized environment, and it is great, and you will have a great time. And it will give you real experience that employers care about. Look, no employer is going to care if you set up an EC2 instance or built a WordPress website. But when you build the cloud and you tell an employer, I built a cloud, oh, that changes everything. And here's the reason it changes everything. First, you got knowledge to build the cloud. I've taught an 8-year-old in 3 minutes how to set up an EC2 instance. So that's what it takes to build a website. So big difference. So first, you've got it. 2, employers like people that go above and beyond, that are energetic and enthusiastic. Which is harder? Set up an EC2 instance, build a cloud. Energy, enthusiasm, passion, willingness to go above and beyond. So I love your energy. I love your desire to buy a server. If you're one of my students, you can use VPN access to my servers. If you're on your own, go buy that server. It is really, really, really great. And that's the reason. I think it's terrific. So go do it. Or if you don't want to buy a server, that's why I have the Cloud Architect Experience program, which I don't typically talk about. But I have that for people that just want to do server labs, that don't want to go to the expense to buy the servers. They just want to rent mine for 3 months. So that's what that's for that particular environment. But definitely get yourself a server. I think it's a great idea. If you've got some questions, please ask them in the chat box, and I'm happily answer them. Hey, that's me. Would the CCNA along with the SAAs be sufficient to get a cloud job? Hey, that's me. I'm gonna be honest with you. A CCNP and a certified solution architect professional by itself is not enough to get a cloud job. So the first question is what the cloud job is, and the second is which one you want it to be. So it's not just being certified that gets somebody hired. Hey, that's me. And I'll tell you how to get hired, but getting certified is not going to get you hired. It'll help, but it's not. So, hey, that's me. The first thing is figuring out what are the exact requirements of your job. So, hey, that's me. If you tell me exactly what it is, I will tell you exactly what you need to know to do it. I will start by telling you, hey, that's me, what's required to become a cloud architect. Now, if you want to be a cloud engineer, the pathway will be very different. If you want to be a the maintenance people, the SysOps people, it'll be a different pathway. If you want to be a DevOps engineer, which is another job which could be done on the cloud, it'll be an extremely different pathway. And if you want to be a cloud developer, hey, that's me, it's going to be an extremely different pathway. And I really want to answer your question. So first, I need you to tell me which career you want. But since I don't exactly know which career you want, the question becomes I'll pick cloud architect. And actually, before I do it, let me describe the 4 main roles. A cloud architect like me is a systems designer. We design the systems for an organization. A cloud engineer is the system builder. They configure everything. So I design it as a cloud architect, and I hand it off to a cloud engineer. The cloud engineer then builds it. After it's built, it goes to maintenance people. Those maintenance people are called SysOps people. So SysOps and architecture are exactly opposite careers. So cloud architect design, cloud engineer build, SysOps maintenance. And then there's one other kind of role on the cloud, and it's a very good role, and it's DevOps. DevOps is the automation of software delivery cycles, and it's designed to improve software release quality and speed and agility. So you've got the DevOps side on the software side, you've got the sysadmin side on the maintenance side, you've got the cloud engineer side on the build side, and you've got the cloud architect on the design side. So hey, that's me. If you wanted to be a cloud architect, it's going to come down to this. It's going to come down to your knowledge of the network and the data center. So if you get the CCNP, that will give you some network knowledge, which is great. And if you get the certified solution architect professional, that still doesn't cover the data center knowledge, which you need it to. So here's what you would need to do. Here's the missing component. So first, you need to learn server virtualization and get real good at it, because everything you deal with on the cloud is a virtual machine. Whether it's an Azure virtual machine, an EC2 instance, or something on Google Compute Engine, it's just a virtual machine. Then you need to get really good with containers. So you need to know Docker and Kubernetes really well, because if it's not a virtual machine, it's going to be running on a container. So it's going to be one or two and nothing else. That's your cloud computing platform. So next, you've got data, right? Data gets stored somewhere. So you really need to know a lot about block storage, object storage, file storage, and when to use each. And it's not enough to know that object storage is S3. You need to have real knowledge. Because if you've got to migrate 100 petabytes of storage, what is it? What's that metadata look like? What's the architecture? It's going to be a big conversation, and you need to know a lot about storage. Then you will need to know about load balancers, another data center technology that comes in. Hold on one second. Okay, hey, that's me. I'll finish answering your question. Let's keep it going for architect, and I'll tell you why. So I actually don't remember what I was talking about before the update popped on the screen. So you're just looking, you said you wanted to come into the cloud fast. So here's the key. It's knowing exactly what it is. So for the architect, it's a lot for you to learn, an incredible amount about the data center and the business and the communications, and it's there. Now, you can do it. It takes 8 months for my students, and that's 500 hours of training from me, but you can do it. So that's option one. Cloud two, hey, that's me, is you could become a cloud engineer. To be a cloud engineer, which would be an easier job as a rule, but not always to get them the cloud architect, but you're going to have to learn more technical wise. To be a cloud engineer, you're going to have to know how to configure everything. So the CCNP, hey, that's me, and the Certified Solution Architect Professional, hey, that's me, that's enough. Now, for the cloud engineer, you're going to have to become an expert configurer. So, you're going to have to build everything for the next 2-3 months and get real good at configuring everything from the command line, from the management console, from everything. Now, also, if you want to be a cloud engineer, you're going to have to know Python. And you're also going to have to know Bash scripting. And if you want to be a cloud engineer, you're also going to have to be pretty good with Linux, because you're going to need to know all of that. If you want to be a cloud engineer, you really need to know Terraform as well. So if you know those skills, and you've got the CCNP and the Certified Solution Architect Professional, and you're configuring these things, then you're rock solid, straight to go as a cloud engineer. Now, to get a cloud engineer job, you'll get hired faster if you're more emotionally intelligent, if your communication skills are better, if your executive presence is better, because you'll be more likable. If your interview skills are better, you'll be more hireable. So what's next? There's cloud support. For cloud support, you're going to have to be pretty darn technical. Why? Because you're going to be in questions from all angles, and it's going to be hard to figure it out. So for support, you got to be pretty darn technical. You could do that. It's very hard to get support jobs, and it's very hard to get entry-level jobs. So the next question could be SysOps. SysOps would be an easier place to go to, because the SysOps is much more configuration and scripting and maintenance. So, you could do SysOps, where with the CCNP, that would show some networking. I don't know if you need that as much for SysOps, but let's say you did it. But let's say you had a CCNA, which gave you some networking background, and you had the Certified Solution Architect perspective. For SysOps, you got to be used to systems administration and systems administration tools, which means network monitoring tools and application monitoring tools, things like SolarWinds and all these other things. You got to know a lot about that. Now, because SysOps people are maintenance people, you're going to have some incredible Linux skills. I mean, some incredible Linux skills. You're going to have this. And the reason so much of this stuff is going to be so important is you're going to be building and configuring and maintaining. So you're going to be patching things. And since you're going to be patching things, you're going to be dealing with all those. So lots of system patches, et cetera, et cetera. So, keep that in mind. So lots of Python, lots of templates, You might be adding users, IAM users constantly. It's all maintenance stuff. So there you're going to have to learn all about maintenance and all about the kind of applications and system monitoring tools. Again, that's fine. So really, hey, that's me. The key is, it's not which job you want. You can have any of them. You can literally go have any of them. It's making sure that you have the skills that are right for the job. Meaning, if you studied Python and then wanted to be a cloud architect, that means nothing to the hiring manager. If you studied SysOps and want to be a cloud architect, that's a strike against you, because the hiring managers are going to think you're the maintenance person as opposed to being the architect. So it's a matter of what do you want. And if you tell me exactly what you want, love to get you there quicker. But I think, you can get to almost any of these in the same amount of time if you have a laser-like focus and learn the right skills. For me to take somebody that comes from a sales background and turn them into being a cloud engineer, wow, that would be hard. But it's real easy for me to turn them into a cloud architect that they already have trained. Likewise, it's about coming where you're starting from. So I don't know your starting point, but I think the cloud's a great place, but I advise you to be relatively strategic about where you want to go, because if you get the wrong one, you're just not going to be happy. For example, I love the tech. In fact, in my heart, I'm an engineer. If you'd see the tech that I have in my house just to play with it, I'm an engineer at heart. But I am miserable sitting behind a desk. I mean, literally speaking, I had my first job. It was one of the best jobs you can imagine. I stayed for 7 months. I took my next job. I was on Wall Street. I was designing systems for a bank. I couldn't last more than, I was at a desk. I lasted less than a year. My next job, I had to go to a desk. I lasted a year later. Then all of a sudden, I took a job as an architect where I was just traveling and consulting with people, and I didn't sit behind a desk. And I spent my whole career there because I was happy. I just didn't like sitting behind a desk. So for me to do engineering, I'd be so miserable that I might leave my tech career. So I want you to have your best tech career. If you want to be an architect and like designing and like talking to people, go be an architect. Focus right there and get there. Focus all your efforts and go get it. If you like the maintenance side of it, and some people love that, go do it, but be great at it. And if you want to be a cloud engineer and go build all this stuff for all of us, we need it. Go be it. Be the best. Just now you know what you need to do to get there. And if you give me more details, I'd love to help you in any way. But good luck and go after it and you'll get it. Uniquely Me, that's a great name. I am a complete newbie to cloud/IT. Well, welcome. I'm still going through a boot camp. Any advice? Yes. Keep going. Keep going. And keep going. And I don't know what kind of boot camp, but I'm going to work on the assumption it's good. Put your heart into it. And I say this, look, I come from healthcare. 25 years ago, I was still in healthcare. And when you ask me what I am, sometimes I don't even know. When people say, Mike, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. Some days I practice medicine. Some days I do career coaching. Some days I'm a cloud architect. I'm whatever I need to be. But no, in all seriousness, if you're in a boot camp and you're working hard to get to your goal, congratulations. Taking charge of your goals and your dreams and going and building an action plan, go do it. Now, if you want to tell me what you're actually learning in the boot camp and you want some advice and guidance on how to get there better, faster, I'd love to give you. So if you're learning to be an architect while you're in the boot camp, I'm going to say this. 95% of the boot camps do not teach the business piece. So while you're in the boot camp, if you're studying cloud architecture, I would say read Daniel Goleman's book on emotional intelligence, or take a program like ours, whichever. But make sure you focus on learning how to give a great presentation. Work on developing gravitas. You know what I mean, or executive presence. You know how some people walk in the room and they're in charge? I need you to develop that. So get that, and it will be very, very helpful. Learn some business acumen, learn how to read a financial statement, learn what people do in the management chains, learn some leadership. And whatever career you want to do uniquely new when you're done, you will rise faster than the occasion. So make sure your interview skills are really good. We have an interview program that I can tell you that I believe is really good because, first, I've never been on an interview where I never got hired. My students get hired every day. And I worked with 20 of the best recruiters that I know. I worked with IT Excel. There are 20 recruiters that all have 20 years experience. So basically we went to 400 years experience, the people that put this How to Interview Better, our Tech Interview Mastery program together. And together there's been at least 25,000 tech interviews these people have done. So we've got a lot of experience there. So I'd say get your interview skills great. Doesn't have to be my product, but make sure you focus on your interview skills. Either way, just focus on your interview skills. And then make sure your knowledge of networking is good. And I say this because, I worked on networking forever. And no matter what career it actually is, the better your networking skills, It's going to help you as a cloud architect, cloud engineer, solution architect. So nothing works without the network. So I'd always say, try and make sure you've got some networking knowledge. That usually builds any career. So that's my guidance for you. And if you've got any more, you want to give me any more information, I'm always, always, always happy to help. Thank you for coming, Uniquely Me, and seriously, any more questions, we'd love to help you. Justice, have you purposely refined the content of the cloud architecture program and so on of soft skills to align with the new normal of people? No, Justice. Here's the thing. There's a certain set of soft skills that works by people that are hired and being promoted. And there's another set of soft skills by people that are not getting promoted, that have stagnant careers or are getting fired or laid off. And here's the thing. The soft skills that we teach are focused on the ones that build people's careers and do again and again and again. And all high-performing organizations still have people that are climbing the same ladders that all have a similar set of soft skills. So at least when it comes to their business interactions. So we keep things doing what works. We speak to employers every day. We speak to recruiters every day. We know what they want. They tell us what they want. They tell us what they're struggling with. They are struggling with people's communication skills, people's lack of focus, and people's lack of work ethic. And they're also focusing and complaining they can't find anybody that's got any skills. They're telling me when I speak to them, they're like, oh my God, and if it's not your people, they come in and they rattle off a bunch of acronyms. And when you ask them about any of these things, they don't even know what it is. They're like, so, it's hard for me. So basically, here's the thing. Keep focusing on just being the best. Be open-minded. Be empathetic. Work on emotional intelligence. Work on leadership skills. Here's the thing. We are 99.9% the same. All of us. That's what our DNA is. We're genetically so close. We're not that different. And in reality, we all want to be treated well. And we all deserve to be treated well. So treat others the way you want to be treated. Never make anyone feel lower. Look at people and treat them all with respect. Make sure that when you're in your conversations, you're bringing out the best in others. And you're always going to succeed in life. You'll have more friends, you'll have deeper relationships, and you'll get hired more because you'll be more likable. And people that are more likable, statistically speaking, get hired more. So in terms of soft skills, go out there and be more likable. You're more likable when you do things that are good for others. So that's my perspective. Chris, you want to bring in the next one? Hey, Matt, that's me. What's the overlap between sysadmin and cloud architect? Hey, that's me. They're exactly opposite careers. So I know there were some certification providers that were saying, here, if you want to learn how to be a system designer, learn how to be the maintenance person. But no, it doesn't work that way. The person that designs the car is generally not the person that washes the car. And being able to wash and wax a car real well and vacuum it out doesn't teach you how to design the next car. So there's actually no relationship between them. So the key is SysOps is maintenance, and it's a great career for those people that like maintenance and like looking at the computer and really like looking at the algorithms to see what's up and what's down and fixing it. And let me tell you, without these maintenance people, these systems would go down and nobody would even notice. They're very critically important people. But it's a skill to sit there and get alerts all day and parse through logs and update things. It's a skill. And if you like that, it's a great skill. So I know people that are very happy in these roles, and I've leveraged these people very heavily in my career, because without that, we'd never know when things weren't working. So, that's the sysadmin side. It's SysOps. That's the person that generally basically does the configuration. The cloud architect is the designer, and we don't really touch the technology as a rule. We typically design it. So there is no relationship. They're actually kind of opposite careers. But I'm so glad you asked, because that way you don't try and study, admin side if you want to be architect. If you want to be an admin, awesome. You want to be an engineer, you're going to do some administration, great. But if you want to be an architect, it's all about design, and more design. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. And by the way, if you got questions, ask them. Sasha Girl, does a cloud security architect need understanding of business since it's business agnostic? A cloud security architect does need to understand business. All architects need to understand business, because when you add security, it impacts the business. And why? So let's say we're going to design a security strategy for an organization. What do we first have to think about? The first thing we have to think about is what is the value of the asset we're going to protect? So if the asset is Mike's phone, my mobile phone, iPhone 12, what's it worth? $800, $900? I have no idea. So this is an $800 asset. Would I hire 3 SAS commandos and 3 Navy SEALs at $5,000 a day each to stand guard on my phone? No, of course not. It wouldn't make sense. The phone's there. Now, if this phone had some top secret thing in there that was so critical to my business, would it make sense to pay $50,000 for people to protect it? Maybe. And then maybe I would have all those guards. So first you need to know that, but also Asha, once you add security to an environment, it changes the convenience factor. It will affect the perception of the users. And what does that do to business, Asha? Again, it affects the ability of the business to make money. So there's no architect position where you can't know about the business. Now, in the lower positions, and I say lower because they're more engineer and less architect, like these technical architect roles, you can afford to be less businessy. You can. But if you're less businessy, your salary will be half. So it's up to you. Do you want to be there? And because it's never business agnostic in security. How do you secure a bank? I promise you, is differently than how you secure my business and its students. Very different thing versus how you secure a hospital. It's all different. It's based upon the needs of the business. So understanding the security and the level of security has a lot to do with, what's going on. And also, when you're dealing with security, if your security gets too restrictive, then your people will do stupid things. Like they'll put sticky notes with all their 120 character passwords directly on their desktop, which anybody can see. So you have to understand the psychology of the people, the psychology of the business, the organizational dynamics, and also all the business components that could be affected by the security. So definitely, any architect role, the better your business knowledge, the better you'll be at it. Chris, you want to bring in the next question? The coding nomad. Would you recommend skipping for an entry-level job role altogether before becoming an architect? You're in the UK and you just finished a 12-week boot camp and you're being advised to take an entry job. Well, here's the thing. I hope you're not coming from that one place where we remediate all of their students in the UK. But let's hope not. So here's the thing. I don't necessarily know that you can even find an entry-level job right now. So here's the thing. In a normal economy, a good economy, there's lots of entry-level jobs. But let's think about what is an entry-level job and why there's less of them now. Let me just readjust here. So when you're dealing with entry-level jobs, they're typically things like taking a server and racking it and installing the operating system in, plugging it in, powering it up. Guess what? When the cloud, we click 3 buttons. We don't buy the server and rack it. So that job sort of went away. And a lot of the jobs of pulling physical cabling and working on the racks, those jobs are entry-level tech jobs, and they're gone. So because of the bad economy, which we're all dealing with right now, and because we're dealing with automation and cloud computing, most of those entry-level jobs are gone. So they're just gone. So the key is, should you keep trying really, really hard to apply for entry-level jobs, or do you just apply for a good job? So here's the thing. It's dependent upon your skills. So I don't know what job you've just trained for. So if, for example, you've trained in this 12-week training program, let's say it was a cloud computing training program, and if, let's say, you wanted to be a cloud architect, and if you've worked with servers and you've worked with server virtualization, and if you've built a cloud, for example, and you've got deep cloud knowledge, and you've worked with Microsoft Active Directory, and maybe you built an Active Directory server, and maybe you've set up Samba shares, and maybe you set up NFS shares, and you've done it, you know how it works. And maybe you built the LAMP stack for web applications. And maybe you built a multi-cloud environment. Maybe you connected AWS to Azure to a Nutanix cloud or an OpenStack cloud. If you've done all these things, you've got some skills. And if you've got these skills, go out there and get an architect job. And if you don't have these skills, maybe it's worth investing in yourself and getting these skills. Get yourself a server and do it in your home or something like that. So go get these skills, because guess what? I'd rather you start a better job now than take one job and then be there for a year, and then take another job for a year and take 10 years to get to the goal. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So when you want to punch above your weight, so to speak, and fight in a weight class above your weight, and you've got no experience, an architect job is above your weight. You can still do it. Here's the secret. You got to make the employers want you so badly they can't say no to you. That is the secret, and that's why we do things differently. That is why we get people a job they never could get, because of this. So that secret is, when we interview someone, your interview score is on a scale of 0 to 100. 0 to 50 is your technical competency. 50 to 100 is your soft skills, emotional intelligence, communication skills, likability, executive presence. So in 12 weeks, in 14 weeks, in 16 weeks, in 8 months, maybe you get to 40 out of 50 out of technical competency. It's the best you're ever going to get, because it takes a lifetime to go from 40 out of 50 to 50 out of 50. And that's okay. A lifetime in just one thing. But with the right training, you can get your soft skills, emotional intelligence, you get to 50 out of 50 on your likability attitude factor. So now you're 40 plus 50 equals 90, and you're 90 out of 100, and you will get hired. So you want to go up a weight class or 2 weight classes and get that cloud architect job, not an entry lab? Don't worry about it. Go after it. So deepen those tech skills. Become so good that you can explain things in your sleep. One of my students practically brought me to tears the other day. He said I was designing 2 direct connections in my dream. And he said what I did is I pre-pended one of the links to make a certain subnet less desirable. And on the other link, I did this. And I went, woohoo, he's doing BGP design in his sleep. And if you don't know what I mean, learn BGP design, because it's absolutely critical to any of these jobs as well. But that's the thing. So you don't need to go for an entry job. You could go for an entry job, but you don't have to, the coding nomad. Go out there and just upskill. Become so good that no one can not hire you. Here's what I did, the coding nomad. I can tell you this. It was 25 years ago, or 24. I don't exactly remember. I remember it like it was yesterday. Here I was a nurse practitioner. I had my own internal medicine office, and I'm now interviewing on my first tech job. Literally speaking, it was a Monday. I go on my first tech interview, and I go interview, and I'm on this interview, and I'm interviewing with this guy, Devendra, and he's the hiring manager, and he's a really, really, really good guy. And Devendra asked me, a normal big question, like, tell me about yourself, and I did. And he asked me a technical question, and I answered it. He asked me another technical question, and I answered it. He asked me a third technical question, and I said, Devendra, I said, I'm sorry, but I've not had the opportunity to learn that technology yet. I said, as a matter of fact, it's Monday at 11:30 a.m. I said, it's 6:30 p.m. Friday. I was rounding on my patients in the hospital, and this is my first time on a tech interview, and I'm so honored to be with you. I said, look, I love technology. I'm super hardworking. I'm super motivated, and I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. And I can find the answers to things quickly. I said, but I have to be honest. You asked me about a technology, and I don't know it, so I want to start this out right. I want to build a good relationship with you. Now, this was my first interview in tech, and this was for a network engineer job, and something funny happened, something I never expected. Devendra stakes out his hand and says, I'm going to hire you. And then he says, I've got a problem with you. And I say, okay. I assume he's going to give me an entry-level job. I assume, because I've never worked in tech before. I never even interviewed in tech before. And he said, you applied for a network engineer position. And I said, yes. And he said, I can't make you a network engineer. I'm like, okay, he'll make me help desk. Whatever, I'll take my first job. I want my first tech job. He said, I'm going to make you a senior network engineer. I was bewildered. And he said, I knew you were going to wonder. He said, here's a couple of things. He said, I've never done an interview like this in my life. He said, you've got 0 experience and you're already better than 2/3 of my team. He said, what's going to happen? You have some experience. He said, you actually made me laugh hysterically. Your first tech interview, you've never worked in tech, and you're answering things my team can't do. And I said, I don't know. I just studied real hard. I said, it's important to me. He said, I know. He said, you're laser focused and I need you on my team. That's the key. And why I punched above my weight. I went up a level and I didn't even know it. Now, since then, I've had many students that have done this. And the secret to that win was always being super likable and making them better. So I don't have a student that graduates my program that doesn't build a cloud. They have to. They have to do these things. My students give presentations, they do ROI modeling, they do it all, because I know in an interview, if you're perfect, you get hired. See, here's the thing. You know, I've done a lot of tactical training, martial arts training. I've even trained some special units that needed help with some of these skills at one point in my life. In times of stress, like an interview, we don't rise to the occasion. Nobody rises to the occasion. We fall to the level of our training. So a normal person, let's say you're a 90 out of 100 on an interview, and then you get stressed, you're a 60 out of 100. So I need to get to the person that's going from a 90 out of 100 to 150 out of 100 in a good environment. So they're still 100 out of 100 on an interview. So go out there. You don't need an entry-level job. Go out there and get something great. But prepare to fight, prepare to do battle, prepare to be the best you can be, and go out there, build a great career. And guess what, the coding nomad, when you got this great job, you tell me, because I'll really be happy for your success, because you'll be like me. You just take this great job, fight hard, and win. Chris, you want to bring in the next one? Clearly, I'm a martial artist. Uniquely me. How does the cloud engineer role differ? Uniquely me, how does the cloud engineer role differ from which job? So I'm going to assume you're talking about cloud architect right now, but if you're not, just let me know. So the cloud architect is a systems designer. So me as a cloud architect, I go ask my customer about their business, and I learn about their business. After I ask about the client's business, I then say, can you tell me about your current technology? They tell me about their technology. I then say, can I baseline your current system to see what you have? And they say, absolutely. And then I usually bring in a technical team of cloud engineers to baseline their systems. And then after I have information about their past systems, I then design the system for them. I design the future state of their environment. What does it look like? What is the architecture? Where are the switches? Where could be switches, routers, firewalls, but as a rule, if it's on the cloud, where's your web environment? Where's your applications? Where are your databases? Where are your ERP applications? Where are your supply chain applications? Where are your CRM applications, et cetera, et cetera? All these applications that are there, I'm going to design the environment and all the tech in there to make the environment work better. Now, uniquely me, I'm then going to write it up and document. I'm going to draw a bunch of pictures. I'm going to go back to the customer site. I'm going to go try and sell this to the customer and talk about it to the customer and talk about all the business benefits to the customer. That's what I'm going to be doing as a cloud architect. Now, that's it. I will not be building it. I will not be programming it. I will not be configuring it. I designed it and I helped sell it. And for the pre-sales architect, which is most of these, that's exactly what that's going to be. Now, the cloud engineer, once I've sold this, once there's an architecture, once there's a bunch of pieces of paper, what happens is these pieces of paper or the digital version gets sent to the cloud engineer and they go build it. So the cloud engineer does not go to the customer as a rule. The cloud engineer sits behind a desk. The cloud engineer then goes to the cloud and SSHs in and sets up the servers, sets up the storage, sets up everything. So the cloud engineer is the configurer of the stuff. So cloud engineer needs to know how to code. Cloud architect doesn't need to know how to code. A cloud engineer knows how to use infrastructure as code tools like Terraform. Cloud architect doesn't configure anything, so these aren't relevant. Cloud engineer needs to understand some scripting kind of things and how to configure everything and how to maintain it to some degree. Cloud architect doesn't do any of this. Cloud architect needs to know how to do ROI modeling. Cloud architect needs to know how to sell. Cloud architect needs to know how to present. Cloud architect needs to have business acumen. Cloud architect needs to be a leader. So the cloud architect might lead a team of 20 cloud engineers that are going to build it. In fact, in one of my architecture roles, I had a team of about 30 engineers. The 30 engineers did the proof of concept. I designed the proof of concept. They all built it out. Then I design the architecture for the customer, and ultimately a bunch of engineers built it. So that's how they differ. The architect is the designer. So uniquely me, think about a building architect versus a construction crew. So you've got a building architect that designs the building, okay, or the house. And then after the architect designs the building, then they consult a structural engineer to make sure the building's going to be strong enough. And then after the structural engineer blesses off on it, then you hand it to a construction crew, basically a general contractor who then hires the plumbers, the hammer people, the carpenters, and I don't know anything about tools and things. I'm always wowed by people that know how to use their hands, but I don't, so that's why I don't know much about a house, but just think about it that way. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Daniel, great stuff so far. What does one have to do to become a DevOps engineer? Daniel, that is a great question, and DevOps is a great environment. So much so that I actually am working with Sandeep Das in India, and he and I are creating a how to get your first DevOps engineer job, and we spoke or even this morning about it. So here's generally speaking what you need to do for DevOps. First, you're going to have to know Linux because you're probably going to be on a Linux system. So you're going to have to be good with at least the use of a Linux system, but that's really not the biggest issues. So Daniel, first for DevOps, you should be a good software developer. So if you're not a coder and you haven't been in software development, chances are DevOps is not the right career for you. So DevOps is not just go take a DevOps certification to be there. So realistically speaking, to be a good DevOps engineer, you should have been a software developer first. And if not, you're going to have to learn to code for DevOps, specifically Python and possibly other languages, but definitely Python. Then for DevOps, you need to get really good at these DevOps tools. And I'm not a DevOps engineer, but there are lots of tools, things like Git, Jenkins, Spinnaker, all those things, all those CI/CD pipeline stuff. You got to get really good at that because that's all you do as DevOps engineers is you work with that. Also, a lot of DevOps engineers, because they're so good with automation, are now doing automation in cloud deployments. Specifically, they're doing the infrastructure as code work. And that means Terraform is something you really need to know. So you've got to be good with that. So you also need to be extremely good with Kubernetes. Where your Kubernetes cluster is going to be hosted? Linux. So you're going to have to be good with Linux. You're going to have to be good enough at Linux administration to know how to install things in Linux and know how to start and stop and restart services. And you're going to have to be pretty good at, editing those configuration files in like VI or Nano or something like that. So you're definitely going to have to understand the Linux architecture as well. So DevOps is a great career, but it's not exactly a lower barrier to entry than a cloud architect role. It's equally hard, if not harder, depending upon where you're coming from. If you're a software engineer, DevOps is simple. Kind of like if you're a network engineer, cloud architect role is kind of simple. But if you're not, then that's where the training impacts come in. So just keep that in mind. But it's a great career, Daniel, and I think a lot of DevOps, and it's a career of the future as we automate more and more. If you've got some questions, please bring them. Mustang Polygraph. Can I become a cloud architect without a degree in computer science? The answer is yes. Absolutely. I don't have a degree in computer science. But yes, seriously, absolutely. Now, I'll say this again, because lots of people come at different times. I will say there's about 15 to 20% of employers that won't hire someone without a degree. Now, does the degree have to be in computers? No, it's just that there's about 15 to 20% of employers that want someone with a degree. I don't think the employers care what your degrees are in, because the employers know the degrees in computer science really don't teach anything related to what we actually do in real life. They're kind of like certifications. The certification and the actual job are so far related that honestly certification is so far from reality in so many ways. Just like college in so many ways is far from what we do in the careers, but it's good to have it. I went to school lots of times. I liked it. I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed the process. But that's neither here nor there. Yes, you can get a great job as a cloud architect without a degree. Now, when you don't have a degree, you need to be better than those that do. For every strike against you, you've got to have an extra positive. So to be the extra positive for you should be as follows. You should be more technically competent than your peers. Just be better. And you should also focus on the things that they expect you, the employer expects you to be weak on, and not have any chinks in your armor. The employer assumes, incorrectly, but they assume that if you went to the university, your writing is going to be better. Your punctuation will be better. Your grammar will be better because you're more educated. So on your resume, make no mistakes. Make sure your communication skills are stellar. Make sure they're better than the college graduates. And when you communicate with them, make sure you've got some gravitas. Make sure that that presence gravitas is there. Make sure that you communicate in a language that's clear. Make sure your thoughts are organized. Make sure you come across with power and capabilities. So make sure your communication skills are better. Make sure you know a lot about the business that you're in, the business acumen. Know about being relevant to the leadership, the CEO, the CFO, the CTO, the CIO, because that really matters. So make sure that you've got your business acumen. Make sure that your interview skills are better than everybody else. Make sure that your executive presence is there. Make sure that you've learned your ROI modeling. Make sure you've tuned your sales skills, your interview skills, and then go after it. Like, nobody cares, almost nobody cares. I still say 15 to 20% of companies do really care on whether you have a degree or not. But even those companies, the hiring managers are like, it doesn't matter. I will give you one example of a company that did care. I went on an interview about 18 or 19 years ago. And on this interview, there was one boutique hedge fund in New York, and they only hired like PhDs. And I remember somehow I had interviewed with them. One of the recruiters I know put me in an interview. And what happened is they were trying to come up with this high performance, high availability internet connectivity. And they wanted to be no more than one ISP hop away from their customers. And basically what they needed to do is they needed to connect to about 8 internet service providers and run eBGP between them with the policies. And they had no idea how to do it. So I had an interview on them, in a technical interview, and these 6 PhDs asked me if I knew about BGP, and I said, yeah, absolutely. And they started to describe a situation. I said, can I whiteboard it? And I literally whiteboarded the thing that these 6 PhDs had been working on for 6 months, and I had it done and solved in about 3 minutes. So it's all whiteboarded out. The 6 PhDs are so blown away. They dragged me to the chief information officer's office. I walk in and he's like, I'm told I have to talk to you and I have to hire you because you solved the thing that the whole team couldn't figure out in 6 months. So like, sit down. And he starts to talk to me. And we start to speak and he's like, oh my God, I gotta have you on my team. And then he gets to my resume. We're talking, and he looks at my master's degrees. He says, MBA, I like that. And he says, master's in nursing. I said, yeah, I used to practice medicine before I went into tech. And he said, so you're not a real tech person? I said, you define a real tech person. You've got 6 people with PhDs, and I literally just solved something that the 6 of them couldn't do in 6 months. And he says, I really like when people have degrees in technology. And I said, it's great that you like that way. I'm not the right person for you. And he was like, wait. And I said, look, you just told me you don't like to work with people that don't have degrees in technology. You just called them a reformed technologist. I said, tell you what, I practiced medicine first before I did this. And I was able to do in 3 minutes what your team of 6 PhDs with degrees in computers couldn't do in 6 months. You might have actually looked at me and said, wow, if this guy can do it studying medicine, imagine what he's capable of. I said, so I don't really think this is the right place for me. I said, but my recommendation for you is this. You've got some serious networking needs. I said, and quite frankly, the only people that are out there that know how to help you with these things are people that have a CCIE number less than 10,000, because in those days, they were the strongest. I said, I recommend you get one of them, whether they've gone to college, haven't gone to college, studied basket weaving, medicine, or were lawyers in their past life. You find yourself a CCIE with a number of less than 10,000. You bring them in, you ask them to do what I did. Most of them are going to be able to do it. Your problems will be solved. It's not going to be me. And he's like, but what if I'm like, no. This is not the right place for me. So the key is you got to go where you're right. And you also have to know when to say no, because you got to be happy and you've got to be confident enough, and you can win. And the degree doesn't matter. Just go find the remaining employers, that 85 to the what do you call it, the 80 to 85% that don't care. You'll be great. No instructions. What salary bonuses should a newbie expect on their first job after completing your program? I would say on average, what you see on a first typical cloud architect job is about $120,000 a year on average. Some less, some more. Realistically speaking, that is really determined by how well the person does in their interview. If that person goes in there and they crush that interview, they can be paid a lot more. If that person feels a little shaky on the interview, they can be paid a lot less. So it's really going to be dependent upon that. But, I'd say 80 to 150 as the first job is pretty typical. And about 80 to 100,000 pounds in the UK is pretty typical from what we're seeing from our students. Daniel, what's the difference between DevOps, site reliability engineer, and SysOps? Okay, so DevOps is a process to improve software delivery release cycles. So smaller things, more frequently, lots of automated tools to do it. So DevOps is making sure software gets rolled out faster. SRE, or a site reliability engineer, these are people that'll sit in a data center all day long and wait for things to break. And when something breaks, they will unplug a cable, plug it into a new server. They will try and reinstall an operating system on a server. They're break fix people that sit around waiting for things to happen. So they just wait for things to break and then they fix them. Have to swap out a hard drive on a computer. That's what a site reliability engineer does. Now, SysOps is operations and maintenance, meaning I design it as an architect. I give it to the cloud engineer to build it. After it's built, somebody has to maintain it. Kind of like, if you were to go away to Jamaica for a month on vacation, you'd need somebody to mow the grass on your house. You need somebody to take the mail in. You need somebody to make sure the lawn is watered. You make sure your cat or dog is fed if you had one, that kind of thing. That's maintenance. That's what SysOps is. It's the people that maintain the stuff after it's built. So you kind of keep that in mind. So DevOps, automation of software releases. Site reliability engineer, break fix, person sits there with some tools and some screwdrivers and fixes stuff when it breaks, swaps out CPU, memory, hard drives, whatever the broken things are. SysOps, maintenance people. If you've got some questions, please put them in the chat box. And Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. T&E event planning. Oh, good to see you again. What is the best certification to have with the AWS Solutions Architect? CCNA or CCNP? CCNP is always better than CCNA because it's the CCNP is the Cisco Certified Network Professional. Now you have CCPN, but I'm going to verify that because I'm assuming it's just a typo. But let me make sure there's not something called the CCPN that I don't know about, which if I don't know about it, it's probably not going to be too good for you. No. Definitely keep with the CCNP. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Daniel, what kind of projects should we be working on for roles in DevOps, for example? If DevOps is about improving CI/CD lives, including DevOps is not about monitoring live systems as a rule. That's SysOps. So DevOps, you'd be writing code, then you'd be working with Git, then you'd be doing all kinds of automation and releases. So I'm not the guy, Daniel, to give you the list of DevOps, projects to work on, because I'm not a DevOps engineer. But I will say, first thing you should know how to do is write some Python code. And then you should go out there and get a list of DevOps tools, Chef, Jenkins, Spinnaker. Start learning about how to use Git, start learning how these repositories work, and really get your hands on some of these DevOps tools off of the cloud. And then when you do get to the cloud, it'll be easier. So learn how to do it off of the cloud, but make sure you know how to be a developer first, Daniel. So Daniel, can I go a bit deeper about what it means to be good at Linux? Yeah, sure. And what it means to be good at Python. So here's the thing, Daniel. When you're good at something, you know how to do it. And I got to tell you, so if I interview 5,000 people, I may find 10 people that are actually good at their jobs. So good at Linux means, as if I've got a friend that I consider to be good at Linux, I call him today and I say, Nathan, I need you to help me with something. And he says, what do you need? I say, I've got 10 servers at my house. I say, I need you to come and install an OpenStack Ansible cloud for me. I need you to come in right now. And he's going to say, okay, Mike, how many controllers? How many, what do you call it? How many servers are going to do how many servers are going to be the data plane? Then he's going to say, what's your storage area network look like? And I'll say this, and I'll say, what other servers do you have for storage? And he's going to say, do you have any kind of NFS running file servers? Now that guy will come to my house, literally speaking, in less than a day. He will install the operating system on all those servers. He will then install all those servers, install the cloud software on top of the cloud, enable the services, and enable everything in less than a day. So he can do that. So to be good, and what I mean by good, you should be able to know how to administer anything. You should know how to change the kernel on a Linux machine without looking it up in the documentation, even though I want you to look up in the documentation. You should know how to rebuild the kernel. You should know how to install a video driver and even if you have to compile a new kernel along the way. You should know these /etc/ files. You should be able to know how to use VI and literally SSH into a box VI or Nano and edit the files and where the files are and how to tune the files, change the bootloaders on these kind of things. So you should just know how to do that in your sleep. That's being good at Linux. Change the swap file, mount new drives. Mount network drives, change the IP address, add a route to it, instantly install a web server with like a yum install, Apache, that kind of thing. So you should, that's kind of mean by being good at Linux. You should just know how to do that stuff without thinking. It's just part of you. Same thing with Python. To be able to write an automation script, you should know how to do it. So if I were to ask you to write a script that says, I need you to plug into a Twitter API and find the number of times that someone said cloud architect, and then take that and input it into an SQL database, you should be able to do that, and it should be pretty easy for you to do. And you should be able to do it by just thinking about it and then knowing exactly what to do on your own. That's good. So I would say make sure you're that competent first, because that's what I mean by good. Now, if you are a cloud architect, you don't need that level of depth, because we need to know how systems work, because we design them. But when you're taking these deep engineering jobs like DevOps, and they're good jobs, but these are deep engineering jobs. These are not business jobs. These are deeply technical. And that's what I mean. You should be able to code that stuff at moment's notice without thinking about it. Like if I invited you over for dinner and I said, while you were here, hey, could you do this? You should just be able to do it without thinking. That's what I mean by being good. So if you really want to be a DevOps engineer and you want to have a great career and a career that's like this, that's what it's like. And when it comes to getting your first job, everybody's expectations of you are down here. So if they view you here and you show up here, they don't know what to do with you. They have to hire you. They pay you double. They'll do anything to get you on your team. I've interviewed with 5 companies, except for the one that I backed out of. I've been hired by all 5. And here's the thing, I got hired directly on the spot. And the reason was, it wasn't that I was so special. The reason was I was exactly what the hiring managers want. And you know why I was exactly what the hiring managers want? I studied what they wanted and what the exact demands of the job were before I got there, so I could build a plan to be the hiring manager's dream hire long before I decided to change careers. And that's what I do with my students. We tell them what the hiring manager's dream hire is. We give them the ultimate destination, and we find their starting point, and we build a plan to become the ultimate dream hire. So go do that. That's what I want you to do. Go figure out if this is what you want to do in DevOps. Figure out all those DevOps tools. And I'll have I'll make a point of bringing another DevOps engineer on my channel, and we'll do a DevOps question and answer session for careers. So I'll do that at some point near in the future, because I think it's great. Daniel, which cloud-related jobs have the highest market opportunity, i.e. number of available roles? Okay, Daniel, great question. And I want you to think of a pyramid. So it's going to look like this. At the top of the pyramid, you have your highest paying jobs. At the bottom of the pyramid, you're going to have your lower paying jobs. You will always have more workers than managers. And here's the reason. If you had all managers, nothing would ever get done. Why does an organization have a manager? Because for every 5 or 10 people, somebody needs to keep track of what's going on. That's the reason. And make sure that everybody stays focused and on track. So one manager can deal with 5 to 10 people max. No more than that, because then they're overwhelmed, because you got to be that focused. So at the bottom end, if we start working with cloud engineer as the bottom, and I don't like to call it the bottom, because here's the reality: they build everything, and without the cloud engineer, we've got nothing. So if you're going to look at salaries with the job opportunities, you're going to have cloud engineer as the most, because they're the builders, they're the construction workers, they're the people that make it all happen. So then you're going to move up, and you're going to find these cloud architects. So as we move along the way, as we come up, we're going to have less jobs as cloud architects, but they're going to pay a lot more. And they're going to pay a lot more because they're going to be closer to the business. Not more valuable because what they do is more important, but because they're going to be closer to the business, and they're going to be focused on saving the business money. And when you're the engineer, you're an expense on the business because you're the construction crew that somebody's paying. When you're the architect, you came up with the idea to save the company money through technology, so they're willing to pay more for that. Now, as we extrapolate up, we move into these enterprise architecture roles. They're much higher on the pyramid because they're much closer to the CEO, and they have much more influence for the ability to exercise influence. So because of that, now there's much less of these enterprise architect jobs, but they pay more. So the question is, highest opportunity is going to be your architecture roles. Highest number of jobs is going to be your engineering roles. There is no shortage of each, Daniel. You could, if you've got a capability as a cloud architect like me, and there's plenty of other great cloud architects other than me. In fact, there's probably a lot better ones. My area of focus is on the network, and even on the network on the cloud, I love to focus on the network. That's me. There's a lot of amazing, great cloud architects out there. But I get 3 offers a day without even looking for them. They come to me. Why? Because there are so many architect jobs, and there's just nobody to do them. And you know what? The same thing for cloud engineers. There's so many of them, there's not. So I don't think you have to worry about which one. I think the bigger concern is which is going to make you happier. If you've got the skill, you can get a job on either one of these in less than a day if you're skilled. Skilled means being perfectly matched for the position, and being skilled in your interview, and being skilled in the communication and the business and the leadership and all of it. If you're perfectly skilled, you can get hired same day. In fact, if you interview so well, even in organizations that will do 15 or 20 interviews, they'll hire you same day. Denny C. Hi, Mike. Sorry if I repeat someone's question. That's fine. But you could give some examples of configurations you have to do in real life as a solution architect? Absolutely. So Denny, I've been a cloud architect, solutions architect for 25 years. Do you know how many things I've configured in my life? 0. So here's the thing, Denny C. As architects, we don't configure as a rule. Now, as architects, we design. So I've never done any configurations as a cloud architect. I've done a lot of system design, but never have I configured anything on the cloud. In fact, 25 years ago, I was a network engineer. And when I was a network engineer, you know what? I was configuring things all day long. And then I got promoted to network architect. And that was the last time I ever touched the command line or anywhere in between. And you know, Denny, my friends that are architects and all the cloud providers, they don't configure anything either. My friends that are working for the consulting companies as cloud architects, they don't configure anything either. That's what cloud engineers do. So now, if you're asking me of some things that I've designed as an architect, well, typically speaking, you got to think about, why do organizations go to the cloud? So if an organization has a really good data center, which is going to give them a lower latency to their data? Something that's directly connected to the data center, or something that's a cloud that's like 1,500 miles away? Their data center is going to perform better in general than their cloud because of the latency of the cloud. But What things on the cloud are really, really, for example, amazing? Web applications. So, I'm constantly moving web applications on the cloud because the cloud does auto scaling. Off the cloud, we build these web applications for Black Friday, when we're getting, or not until Christmas or big sales, when the web servers are going to get as much traffic as possible. And the rest of the year, they sit idle and do nothing. On the cloud, we can basically buy what we need for the whole year. And then we can come up with an auto scaling with a policy and pre-warm our load balancers and pre-scale ahead of time and be good for the Christmas holidays. So we go to the cloud because the agility that, especially with web apps, so there's a lot of that that's going to the cloud. Then you see, you're going to also be seeing a lot of big data going to the cloud. Why? Because a lot of these things require a lot of big data tools and a lot of machine learning, and there's lots of things to be done, and a lot of it's pre-made for you on the cloud. So by doing it on the cloud, there's less for the organization to code because they can use some libraries and things that are done for the cloud. So you're constantly going to see a lot of that stuff going to the cloud. Lots of AI, machine intelligence. You know what? You're starting to see organizations take their supply chains to the cloud too. Because, and this is the kind of thing that I would design. If I've got organizations that are already on a cloud provider, instead of basically me connecting and building a private network with buying routers and switches everywhere and cables and private lines and VPNs, I can just connect to the cloud and do some VPC pairing. So a lot of VPCs and a lot of VPC pairing is the kind of stuff that I get involved with. But also a lot of work to secure these environments. Most people don't understand that the cloud is inherently just about 2% less secure than the data center because of the control plane software. Otherwise, it's the same. In the data center, you've got control of your ingress and your egress, and you even have control over your buildings. In the cloud, you don't do that. In the data center, you've got access to a little more tools, MAC address security, and a few other things that you can't do in the cloud. So in the data center, you've got a little more control. On the cloud, you've got what you call a high-value target. Hack into me in my house, and you get pictures of my cat, Cindy. Hack into AWS, Azure, or Google, you get access to all their customers. So when you're on the cloud, you have to think extra about your security. Extra about security. So for these kind of questions, this kind of stuff is really, really important. So that's why we do the training the way that we do our training, because as an architect, if you're training your configuration, and I still want you to know how to do it, you're not training architecture skills. So your skills have to be system design, which means you must know about the things you're designing, which is the network and the data center. A virtual machine in the data center is going to go to the cloud. So you need to know all about virtualizations and virtual machine sizing. So when you take that VM to AWS, it goes on an EC2 instance. But guess what? If it goes to Azure, it's in a virtual machine. And if it goes to Google, it's on a compute engine. So this is really speaking. So yeah, so here's the reason we actually do our training. And here's the reason we do all this free certification training. And here's the reason we came up with our program. Certifications are the name of the service and how to configure it. Name of the service and how to configure it. So S3, here's how to do it. And that's what the certification question is, because the certification is how to use the vendor service. Now you want to be a solutions architect or a cloud architect, and you have to design the vendor service. It's completely unrelated. And that's why, Denny C, that's why we do our how to get your first cloud architect job webinars. And that's why people don't get hired as cloud architects, because they're training Python, they're training Terraform, they're learning cloud formation, they're learning SysOps, when the reality is the architect is a system designer, and you have to design. If you're designing network and data center things, and the cloud is nothing more than a network and a data center, if you don't know the network and the data center, you can't do it. How do you do your virtual machines? What kind of load balancers? How do the load balancers work? What's the storage environment need to be like? What's the network performance need to be like? How's your routing in between the data center and the cloud? Are you going to load share across your direct connections? Are you going to bundle direct connections? Do you need multiple link aggregation groups? Are you going to load share with BGP across multiple link aggregation groups? How are you going to do the routing between 1,000 VPCs? Do you need transitive routing or non-transitive routing? All of these are just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the design considerations that we need to think about. What does my addressing scheme to look like? What does my routing scheme need to look like? How do I optimize this? How do I secure this? This is all the architect piece. None of that is actually covered at all in the certification training piece. And that's the disconnect. And that's what we built our program to bridge the gap between certification training and being cloud hired. And that's why we're cloud hired. And that's why we do what we do. So make sure you focus on those really important skills. You want to train with us? We'd love to train with you. If you're on your own, again, that's still great. And that's why we're here answering this question. It's still great either way. Just make sure you focus on the right skills, the design skills, because that's what we architects do. We are systems designers. We are not configurers. So that's the reason. So keep that in mind. Aisha, do you need UI design experiences to be a cloud? User interface design? No, we're not making web applications. We are making businesses operate more efficiently. So Aisha, we're not going to be coding web applications. We're not going to be thinking about the look of a web page. Now, an application architect absolutely would be thinking about the user experience of an application. As a cloud architect, we're taking a data center and taking a physical data center, like a company's data center, and we're migrating the stuff to a logical data center, which is Amazon's data center. That's all it is. There's nothing else that we do in the cloud computing is other than take the stuff from here and move the stuff here. And if we don't have the data center, then we say, hey, what are those data center technologies are going to work? 3 web servers, front-ended by a load balancer. Okay, same thing we would have done in the data center. No different. Oh, wait, we've got 5 servers that are Linux servers that all need to access the same information at the same time. Wait, that means we're network storage. What is network storage? Network file system for Linux and server message block if it's Windows. So which one do we use? So all those things are what we do as architects. So those are the skills that you need to know, not the name of a service or how to configure it. Sandy, percentage of our students who graduate as a cloud architect versus a cloud security architect with no experience? Every person that chooses to graduates. And what I mean by that is not everybody that signs up even shows up for the class, which breaks my heart. The reason I made this course really inexpensive for what we do, and people call me every day and they're like, why isn't your program this? My peers and the people that help create this, the people that are my peers, they're like, why isn't your program $25,000 or $50,000? Why do you make it so cheap? And I said, I make it a single day's pay for the cloud architect because I don't need to work. Because I don't need to work, I want other people to have the great careers I have. I don't need to make money off of other people. I need to cover our costs and run a business, making sure that I can have the best technology to run the business and the best people in the business to make sure my students have the best outcome. That's all I care about. We're concerned about doing great and doing these things. So get the right skills and you will definitely be in perfectly good shape. Chris, can you bring that back on the screen, which you took down? So any of my students that choose to finish, meaning they keep coming to class, I don't think I've had any that haven't been hired. Of the ones that have come, whether it's a cloud security architect, cloud network architect, whether they have a tech background or not. But I have had some that have never showed up for the first class. I have had 1 or 2 that have taken 1 or 2 classes and never came back. Those people that stay past 4 weeks will definitely do well. So the key is, it's like anything else. We work real hard to care about our students. Our students that take the program, they take it serious, so they get graduated and they get hired. But you can go to Harvard University and not come to class. You can go to Harvard University and drop out. And if that's the case, those people, they don't graduate from Harvard, which does often have an impact on their career as well. So unless you're asking this question differently, percentage of our students who graduate as a cloud architect versus cloud security architect. Okay. So thank you for my team for clarifying that. I would say about 40 or 50% of my people are becoming cloud security architects, regardless of their background. And the reason is, I generally advise my people for success to pick an area of focus. And I like somebody to have something that makes them better. Again, it's your first job. If you've got 2 cars that you want to sell, you've got 2 Mercedes, they're 2021. One's got a mirror finish on it, one's got a couple of scratches on it. Brand new cars. What are people going to buy? The one that's got the mirror finish. Same car, same quality, who cares? But they're going to buy the moment the mirror finished. So when it comes to getting these jobs, you got to build the perfect brand. So one way, Sandy, that I like to build the brand is build security as a specialty, build networking as a specialty. Melissa was asking about banks. From Melissa, I would say learn about the financial industry as a specialty, and she'll do great. So find something. So percentage of my students with security, at least 40%. And I'm going to tell you why it's so high. Because my students ask me, they say, Mike, what should I do? And I say, you should do what makes you happy. And they're like, but I don't know what makes me happy. What do you think is going to be good? And I say, here's the way I see the future. I say, if you like design, you're an architect. So if you like design, what are the big things that are going to matter? The network. If you don't have the network, nothing works. So basically speaking, nobody knows the network. So being a networking person, your advantage. 2, once everything goes on the cloud, if the cloud gets hacked, everybody's done. So security, security, security. The more stuff goes in the cloud, the more people get, the more stuff that goes on the cloud, the more the systems need to be locked down because they'll be hacked more. So because they'll be online. So security is big. What else do I see as big? Cloud big data. Why? We're getting all this data coming in from all these angles. If we can do something with the data to make better business decisions, very financially lucrative for the organization. So I see cloud big data as a big place. I am not in the world of DevOps yet, but I see DevOps as a great place. And if I had people asking me for a cloud engineering specialty, I would say DevOps because of the automation of the infrastructure as code. I think it's great. So, but again, that's not for architects, that's for engineers. So I'd say about 40% with a cloud security background because of those reasons. Daniel, I understand you're focused on solution architecture, but do you have examples, any additional examples when scripting can be helpful? I'd like to write a few system-specific scripts for your GitHub. Daniel, again, I am not a DevOps engineer, so I can't give you examples of scripts because I don't do DevOps. I'm an architect, and I'm very focused on being an architect. And if I was focused on SysOps, I would be a very good SysOps perfect person, but not a very good architect person. Sun, how does the developer switch into architecting cloud solutions in cloud? What would be the necessary concepts one should have etched down? Okay, so here's the thing. Development is very far from architecting solutions. Now, I've got to say this. I have students that do it every single day. And I would say when I would take a management consultant who's basically coming from a business perspective and a consultant process, for them, they've got all the architecture piece and they only need to learn the tech. When I deal with a software engineer, I have people that need to learn the tech and they need to learn the business. Now you have to learn less of the tech than somebody from outside because you know half of the tech. So generally speaking, the good news is most developers have pretty good knowledge of operating systems. Most developers know Linux relatively well. Most developers have worked with a lot of the applications that we care about, such as web applications and databases. So all that stuff is working for you as the developer. So the next question then becomes, is we have to look into your development path. And in your development path, were you coding all day? And if you were just coding all day, it's very good because we can show attention to detail and we can show some engineering knowledge, which is again great. But if you were doing any application architecture along the way, were you interacting with clients? Were you asking them about their goals? Did you talk about the UI? Did you design an application, for example, that improved availability by 10%, reduced bugs by 10%, those kind of things? That's the architecture piece. So what did you design? And you know, Sun, now of the architectures and the software you've designed or built, how did that impact the business? Because we need to get that on my resume. Did you design a new website that increased sales by 11%? Put it on there. Did you design a new application that increased productivity by 11%? Quantify that. What is the average employee salary per hour times 11% productivity? 111%. You know, figure out what and then subtract minus 100. Figure out what that 11% value is that you gave people. And obviously, I realized I did the math in a very convoluted way there, but you get the point. And I could fix it later. But the point is just quantify it. So take that. So then, as a developer, don't worry, you can become a great cloud architect. So now you need to learn the network in the data center. Why? What is the cloud? It's a network in a data center that's been virtualized. So learn about firewalls, learn about IDS IPS systems, learn about storage, block, object, file storage, and how it all works. Because as an architect, it's about how to design and how it works, not how to configure it. Get really good at understanding your knowledge of load balancers, application load balancers, network load balancers. Build some deep competency in DNS. If you don't have it, you may already have that as the developer. Get really good at virtualization, really good at orchestration and containers and container management strategies and how to use containers. Understand the architecture. Then learn about networking, learn about TCP/IP, learn about BGP, learn about OSPF, learn about VLANs, 802.1q tagging, VLAN trunking protocols, Q and Q tagging, learn about NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, NAT overload, static NAT, dynamic NAT, and make sure you understand some QoS, etc., 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 for example. So, those are the kind of things you need to know on the networking side. Of course, you're also going to need to know about WAN connections, LAN connections, Ether channel, port channel, link aggregation groups, that kind of thing. Those kind of things is what you'd need on the technical side. So you can easily get them. You could get them in a program like ours, or you could get them by learning networking. That would be contained in, say, a CCNA to CCNP program. So make sure you get some of that networking information as well. And then it's obviously the data center knowledge. And you've got lots of places you can find that out. VMware's got lots of knowledge on virtualization, Dell EMC, lots of knowledge, IBM, that you can find on storage, etc. So, go out there to the manufacturers, the people that build the stuff, the people that Amazon and Azure buy their stuff from, and figure out exactly how the stuff works physically, and you'll be golden. Build your sales skills, build your leadership skills, presentation skills, build your ROI modeling skills. Focus on business acumen, because what we do as architects is we design solutions to solve customers' business problems. But we have to understand enough about business to know about the problems that we're going to solve. So Sun Yee-sun, that's the path. I have students that do it every single day of the week, highly successfully, and you can do it too, very successfully. I'm sure you can. So Sun Yee-sun, that's typically down the path of what you can do. We've got a program on it called the Career Development Program, but those are the steps of what you would do on your end, and you will be very successful. Either case, I just want you to be successful. Okay, I have time for one more question. Daniel, I believe you recommend Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence to help with developing, well, I recommend it to help with developing emotional intelligence. That's one way to do it. Quite frankly, I recommend Daniel Goleman's books. We've got a proprietary system that we develop with our students. And here's the thing. I recommend reading Daniel Goleman's work, and it's exceptionally good. And he started it. Emotional intelligence has to do with the ability to control your emotions as well as other people's emotions. So your emotions as well as others. So because of my background, which is both medical, in which case I have a lot of psychiatric rotation experience, and I studied when I did my psych rotations was where they actually embedded cognitive therapy. So I've studied cognitive therapy because I used it on a lot of my patients, and it was very successfully. And I also spent, half of my youth studying behavioral science. And I'm also a yoga instructor. I'm also a martial artist. So because emotional intelligence is about managing your emotions and other people's emotions, we use the work of Daniel Goleman. We also use some breathing techniques. We also use some techniques out of medicine. And we also use some other techniques that we've developed by working with the martial arts and the yoga community. So, we have a process and a very extensive training program in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program specifically for this. But Daniel Goleman is a very great place to start, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. We're getting to about 4:30. I don't have a lot of time. I wish I had more time. I love, love, love interacting with you guys. So I can possibly do one more question, And if it's slow, I would look forward to working with you guys. And you know what? I'll come back tomorrow. Chris, what time can I come tomorrow? Between 9 and 12, right?
Yes.
Okay. I can come back tomorrow between 9 and 12 to answer any more questions that you have, because I want to get you all to your goals. VNHG, it's so good to see you. Daniel, great seeing you. Working as a cloud architect, you have great network of people in the different areas of life. Now, instructions, I've got to say, I feel so lucky. I have worked all over the world. I have contacts in Africa, India, Pakistan, all over the Middle East, all over Asia, all over Australia, Central America, South America, and Canada. It's been a wonderful ride. All amazing people throughout the world. Oh, of course, Europe. Justice, so good to see you. Sandy, love to see you tomorrow morning. Carl Jr. Does our program have a training course for passing the SAA C02? Carl, our program will get you through the Certified Solution Architect Professional and the Certified Solution Architect Associate. It's in the program. Ronald McCrae, so happy to see you. Okay, well, honestly, it's always an honor to communicate with you guys. You guys are amazing. You guys are the cloud community, and I'm honored to be part of it. Let me know what I can do to help you guys out. Love being here with you. It's such a great place. So thank you so much. I'll come back tomorrow at 9. Look forward to seeing anybody that can be here. Anything I can do to help you guys, just let me know. Have a great night, everybody.